Sort of Coming Chapter 10-14. A mountain wearing a black official robe with a powerful presence. Although he belongs to the spiritual shrine, he is very ostentatious. Lingji gently opened the curtain and witnessed the flickering sword light here and slowly lowered the curtain. Mrs. Zhang from Tianchao County really picked up the treasure. On the side is a woman wearing a power fence, with a graceful figure, riding a peach horse in red clothes. One person and one ride, keeping pace with the black and gold sedan chair. It's just that it is different from the talisman mounts of the previous boys and girls. This peach blossom horse that can fly through the clouds and ride the fog is a genuine magical horse. Behind them was a group of entourages who were 20 feet tall, or covered with living creatures and snakes, or surrounded their chins with a string of bones and skulls. Cone weird and hair-raising. The mountain reminded softly, "Fourth Miss, when you arrive at Pomo Peak, don't fight with them if you don't agree with each other, it will make it difficult for the lower officials. If you accidentally miss the important affairs of the mansion, the lower officials will die even more." "Morse," the woman said brightly, "a young sword immortal with boundless aptitude, how dare you provoke him, Memberly? Don't worry, I promise not to speak when I get there." The old man of the mountain who was exposed, his face was as gloomy as water, but his mouth was laughing. He clasped his fists and shook a few times. "Then I will thank the fourth young lady first." This team stopped at a distance of dozens of meters outside the cliff, and the black clouds rolled in an instant like a lichen in the sky. The woman stared at the handsome Zhang's disciple through the power fence tool, and when she saw this young sword fairy up close, she couldn't take her eyes away. If she can marry this young man, she will be able to compare the eldest and third sisters, right? Needless to say, eldest sister, she was married and wronged her. The third sister is really a good marriage. She is about to get married to the direct son of the water lord of a giant lake in the Jiangshan country. It is said that she is recruiting a daughter to marry her. In fact, she has already decided on such a quick son-in-law, but her father likes to be lively and happy. Shan is now short of money in the treasury. Last time he was beaten by the Zhang clan of Tianchao County. The casualties were heavy and the soldiers were almost unable to pay. His father was quite fond of the few earth immortal monks who successively obtained the status of the imperial courts of various countries. I am afraid especially that Zhou Xian, whose father is only short of sticking grass. Recently, Hehuan Mountain has been busy building a great formation to protect the mountain. He spends money like flowing water and he is short of money. I received some dowry gifts and congratulations for the marriage proposal. It is said that this was the inspiration that my father got from a certain news in a Xianxia residence not long ago. My mother is also very obsessed with the novels of the talented and beautiful in the market. What about throwing hydrangea, guessing lantern riddles, kissing me and me under the moonlight? Are all her favorites. The sedan chair swayed and the bloated mountain master stretched out his hand to lift the sedan chair curtain, bowed his head and bent over to walk out. His voice was loud. He didn't talk nonsense. He said the business first. Shaguan Li Tang, who is the of the ancestral temple at the foot of Hehuan Mountain, and also leads the various tribes of Hehuan Mountain. The military envoy of 3,000 soldiers and horses will give you a few words for the two lords. The mountain coughed a few times, moistened his throat, turned slightly sideways, clasped his fist high and changed to a dignified tone and a strong voice. Tianchao County sword repairs Zhang Ye's feet. The Jinke faction favors the blue peaks and golden threads. Whoever comes as a guest, whatever you want. Traveling, it is fine to go to the town, but you too remember to stop at the foot of the mountain and do not climb the mountain. Otherwise it will be regarded as a provocation with the Hehuan and Hehuan. That little old friendship. Dare to climb a mountain and cross the border, kill Wuxia and make a decisive decision. Zhang Yujia twitched the corners of his mouth, not concealing the sarcasm on his face. A monarch of this government, such a powerful official, he really thinks he is the emperor of this place. Why don't he just call himself a widow and end with the word, Qin? The mountain, who looked like a local tyrant, finished reading the decree, and immediately changed his face again, a little flattering, and smiled. The government's decree must not be disobeyed, and I hope Zhang Jianxian and Jin girl will take it to heart. That's good. Don't mention Zhang Yujiao, just say that the little girl with thin skin and tender meat is not very old. But her seniority in the Jinke faction is frighteningly high, just because this little girl's master is the one who even owns the two palace lords. Zhou Xian, who must be afraid of a bit, is now the protector of the Qingxing kingdom. He is a well-known land immortal. He is proficient in the 3 methods of water, fire and thunder. He was then made into a golden fire bell which could exorcise evil but demons, and it was easy. He is proficient in water techniques, can breathe rivers, and has hundreds of soldiers under his command, all of whom are half human and half spiritual masters, especially the real masters of lightning. There are many traces, there are many friends on the mountain, and there are more enemies. In short, the idea is very hard. Li Yan said with a heartfelt smile. Girl Jean, after the tour, return to the Immortal Mansion and say hello to your master on behalf of the subordinate officer. The girl nodded with a smile. I must bring it for Li Juanrong. Although it was the first time for a girl to go out to practice, she was not lacking in this superficial sense of the world. Hearing that the little girl used military face instead of the mountain god, Li Tang immediately smiled, and became more and more pleasing to the female cultivator of the Jin-K faction. The words have been brought to the fore. Li Tang was about to go home, but his young lady stared blankly at Zhang Ye's feet. Li Tang felt helpless. The young Jianxiu from the Zhang family in Tianchao County. No matter how powerful Hehuan Mountain was, you can just kidnap back to the mountains to be the husband of the village. Besides, by luck you robbed Zhang Yu of the feet and returned to the mountains. What should you do with the faces in front of the mansion? Li Yan had to help introduce. This is the fourth miss of our Hehuan Mountain. The two lords are the most favorite, and they are willing to pick the stars and the moon. Now on the Hehuan Mountain side, the eldest daughter is married, and the second son likes to travel far, and this time, it is the third girl from Hehuan Mountain who is looking for relatives. Zhao and Yu of Hehuan Mountain belong to the halfway couple. Before that, there were Taoist companions and sons of Taoism on the mountain. Therefore it can be said that both of them are biological. The woman in red from Mili, otherwise Hehuan Mountain, would not be able to give her the peach blossom horse as a mount, and replace it with a small remote country that cannot produce a qi practitioner in the middle five. Easily Song Zhanshan is king. Fortunately, the fourth young lady didn't entangle Zhang Ye's feet. She just straightened her slender waist, glanced at the girl beside him, sneered, and then she stretched out two green jade fingers and lifted the corner of the power fence, intentionally or not. He raised his chest and said with a smile, Young Master Zhang, my concubine's boudoir name is Xiaomei. We will meet again if you are destined to. Zhang Yujiao turned a deaf ear. One rode and one sedan chair, and led a large group of squires to gradually move away from Spomo Peak. Jean Louis smiled and asked, Rainfoot, what shall we say next? Zhang Yujiao said, Then go to the town at the foot of the mountain to see if you want to climb the mountain, and then you can see the situation there and then decide. Jean Lu nodded, looking at the posture. As long as Zhang Yujiao chose to climb the mountain, she would follow him to the mountain gate without hesitation. Palace Master Bai, who said nothing from the beginning to the end, was filled with emotion. The courage of these immortal masters of genealogy was different from their lonely ghosts, who had the virtue of not being afraid of heaven and earth wherever they went. It is said that this young girl who is on the green peak not only casts a good child, but also worships a good master and goes out to experience. She is not surrounded by a Zhu Bing squire given by the master, or a juvenile sword from the same noble family Xianmen. Fairies walk together. Zhang Yujiao looked at the group of local people, and asked, Please tell everyone, when does Hehuan Mountain start recruiting pro-married daughters, and what is the specific time? The sword-backed boy crossed his arms around his chest. Palace Master Bai pretended to be deaf and dumb, for fear of saying the wrong word and he would end up being slashed again. Only the headless female ghost holding the umbrella did not seem to be particularly afraid of the young sword immortal. She took out a green willow leaf from her sleeve, and as the willow leaf spun, a crisp female voice sounded, reporting back. Sword immortal, there are about 2.5 hours left. Zhang Yujiao nodded and said to the girl beside him, Then go to Hehuan Mountain on foot. The girl is on his side. Obviously everything is easy to talk about, just nod. Zhang Yujiao looked at the female ghost. If the girl is willing, you can walk with us, provided that you don't be afraid of being misunderstood by Hehuan Mountain and wearing small shoes afterwards. Carrying the oil paper umbrella, she leaned sideways and gave a blessing. Zhang Yujiao and Jinlu went down the mountain with the Zhu Bing, unique to the Jin-K faction. The ghost girl with the umbrella walked slowly, pulling a distance not too far away from them. At the top of Splashing Ink Peak, only the sword-carrying youth and Palace Master Bai were left with big eyes and small eyes. Palace Master Bai is still on his way? Don't worry, there are still 2 hours before the marriage ceremony. What about you? What are you doing here? Continue to appreciate the moon. They were silent for so long, and finally Bai Mao took the lead and said, "The scumbag and the belly-eater, they are all poor ghosts. A man named Xianxia who has just succeeded in refining his shape. A little bit of my family's wealth is like the snow money I threw away in the past. I can eat it right away. It's all used to improve my cultivation and replenish my spiritual energy. I just want an instant result. Or a backer, it is easy to cause death, and it is not worth it to be a wedding dress for others." The previous young sword Immortal slashed and slashed again and again. It was eaten by the Zhu Bing of the Jin-Kai faction, and there was not a single bit of dregs left. All that's left is the paper money on the ground. The young man said, "What nonsense, everyone who sees it has a share, and the account is divided between 5 and 5. Palace Master Bai was determined in his heart. Brother Chen is really happy. One word is a decision. It's just that this ghost who claimed the title of Palace Master quickly became suspicious in his heart. This young man promised so happily, couldn't it be the hidden Yamazawa Yeshio? Is it a ruthless master who knows black and eats black?" So Bai Mao distanced himself from the sword-carrying boy and asked with a smile, "Young Xia is so young, he has the strength to refine the qi of the martial arts. It is either rich or expensive. Otherwise, how could he have such an impressive achievement in martial arts? A child of a wealthy family who is traveling? There are not a few guards around the young man. There are qi practitioners in Yishio Sanxian, but almost all of the great martial arts masters in the pure martial arts have a history and a clear division. This is the consensus on the mountain. Especially after the end of the battle between Lu and Xin on the Banzhou continent, in the south of Aquarius continent, almost all the wealthy and noble families who had suffered so much became more and more energetic, cultivated family assassins and dead men, and searched and selected those children with good roots. From a young age, let the martial arts master who is enshrined in the family teach boxing techniques. No matter the cost, eat medicated meals 3 times a day, soak in medicine pots every day, beat and boil the muscles and bones. Even if the seedlings are pulled out to help them grow, they will not hesitate to go the number of ways to eat food. He has quickly risen from the 3 realms of body refining to the realm of qi refining, and he only needs to be in his 20s or 30s to be able to be on his own. Looking at this young man, if it is not the kind of qi trainer who deliberately pretends to be a pure martial artist, then the age and realm of the other party are right. Got it. When contacting the previous boys, exporting into a chapter, Bai Mao always felt that his guess was almost the truth. Anyway, as long as it's not the capricious Yamazawa Yeshio, Bai Mao was an official in his lifetime. What kind of hero is missing? I have only been down the mountain for a few days and I haven't done a few heroic deeds yet. The strawshoe boy said indifferently, "Either call me by my name or call me young Master Chen." Bai Mao was full of slander in his heart. This is because the 4th miss of Hehuan Mountain called Zhang Yujiao as Mr. Zhang, and you are jealous? When we walked to the cliff together, the ground was full of paper money carried from the shattered shelves, as well as various origami houses, cars and beauties, and those gold ingots and silver ingots, which were different from ordinary white shops selling paper money, was the place where the paper money was sold. The merchant wrote the year of the country in cinnabar pen. Different from the way that qi practitioners choose some copper coins as magic weapons, to choose copper coins, they must find those dynasty names with prosperous national power and beautiful meanings. The more people there are, the more yang qi will naturally be contaminated. On the other hand, the base money of these paper money is often the year name when the national strength has weakened to the extreme, so it is mostly cast when the king of the country was in power and the yin is heavy. When someone was burning paper money at the grave, the merchant used some kind of blindfold. It seemed that the burn was finished, but in fact the merchant was robbed halfway. The sword-carrying youth surnamed Qin, along with Palace Master Bai, who hangs the official seal and military talisman on his waist, each pick up their own, and the well water does not violate the river water. Bai Mao deliberately chose those car and horse lofts, maids and maids with ingenious origami, and there are always about 100 snow money. Seeing the sword-backed boy squatting on the ground, he took out the fire book from his sleeve and burned all the pile of paper money he had just obtained. Palace Master Bai was confused and couldn't help asking, "Little brother, what are you doing?" These paper money can be sold by wealthy people in the market who know the goods, but they can sell a lot of real money. If you convert them, you can sell dozens of snow for money. The young man said, "As the old saying goes, money is like flowing water and money, and it is something that can be obtained by hand, but it is only said that these paper money were originally burned to the dead. When they arrived in the underworld they were already short of jeans and shorts. Now they are burned, and the next it is equivalent to an extra sum of money that should belong to them. Palace Master Bai was speechless. After a long silence he said, "You are kind." The young man corrected, "I'm a bold artist. I'm not afraid of walking at night. What is this windfall money, Drizzle?" He stood up and asked, "Go down the mountain together?" Bai Mao nodded. "I always feel that this stunned young man who popped out from nowhere is stupid, and his luck is really good and he can escape the catastrophe." The boy suddenly said, "I seem to still owe you 2 snows for money." Bai Mao shook his sleeves and said with a smile, "It's all here." As a result, the young man glanced at Palace Master Bai and said, "I only served as a sesame official in my lifetime, but I have never been a high-ranking official." Bai Mao smiled bitterly but did not refute anything. Together they walked towards the sedan chair, and the 4 porters who were always on the spot. The young man smiled and said, "It's all said that you have to throw things away and people are more dead than people. I didn't think so before, but now I understand the subtlety of these old sayings. Look at Zhang Jianxian in Tianchao County, and then look at the mountain god. The 8 carry the big sedan chair and finally look at you. I will feel sad for you. People go out with a lot of money inlaid with gold and jade. You are better, Mr. Bai. If you have 10 words on your waist, you will cheer up and return to the palace master. Why don't you set the gate of the mansion at the foot of Hehuan Mountain as a mountain gate?" Bai Mao smiled embarrassedly, stretched out his hand to pinch, chanting words, turning the sedan chair and the porter into a few sheets of origami, and then reaching out to grab the white paper fluttered into his sleeve. This set of outings was bought with the moneyman in the early years, and it cost Palace Master Bai several snows. As for this ignorant and reckless young man, his speech is a bit ugly, but he is a good person. It's just that Palace Master Bai became more and more angry the more he thought about it, and his words were not so unpleasant. Where did he come from? In addition to teaching martial arts, the big family also taught this kind of lip-smacking kung fu? The young man asked. "The umbrella girl in front of me who looks like a well-known lady and a good-looking woman, does Palace Master Bai know where she came from?" Bai Mao looked at the oil paper umbrella and embroidered shoes in front of her. "But which one of your eyes sees a headless female ghost as beautiful? Could it be that your boy is only so eloquent towards women?" Palace Master Bai is still unclear for the time being. The wickedness of the sword-carrying boy who burned paper money was actually recorded on his Bai Mao's head. Bai Mao hesitated for a moment and chose some words that were not taboo. "I only know that her surname is Lu, and of course she has nothing to do with the Lu family of Qingxing Kingdom. They all say that she died for the scholar's love and was beheaded by the executioner to show the public. He was not included in the genealogy before he was alive, and naturally he was not included in the ancestral grave after death, and he was also a pitiful person." Is the horse under the 4th lattice a real horse? It is absolutely true, since this kind of mountain spirit can control the wind and has a high cultivation realm. One can imagine it. It cannot be said that it is a big monster who has long been trained and has obtained the Tao. Cannot be a cave-dwelling realm. Zhao and Yu, the 2 daughters of the palace monarchs, can use it as a mount. The eldest young lady, the 2nd son, and the 3rd girl who got married tonight seem to have no such treatment. Bai Mao recalled the previous danger and asked, "You are so poor that you can't even afford an iron sword? You can only pretend to be a sword hilt. What do you think? It's none of your business if you have money or not. Can't you just chop a peach tree and make a peachwood sword? You are inexperienced in the rivers and lakes. I call it showing the enemy to be weak." Bai Mao, who was speechless for a long time, raised his chin towards the 3 figures at the front. "Seriously, you are a lucky boy. You can meet them. If you come a little later, the consequences will be disastrous. The traitor and the one who likes to eat people's liver and intestines are not good people, and their realm is not low. When the 2 of them join forces, even in this realm, they are all famous. Isn't it still being slaughtered by a young man whose hair has not grown evenly?" Bai Mao said with a smile. "Xianxian, the master of Zhang family from Tianchao County, is a genius of cultivation, known as a swordsman, a genius among immortal materials. Do you know what a swordsman is? Practice qi in the world. There are only 2 types of scholars, sword cultivators and qi practitioners other than sword cultivators." The strawshoe boy said indifferently, "I'm also a swordsman, don't you know this? Are you stupid?" Imparity was almost so angry that it was engulfed in smoke. The young man crossed his arms around his chest and asked, "Since the Zhang family in Xianxia County is so arrogant, why not just level the Hehuan mountain and restore the heaven and earth to a brighter world, which is also a great merit?" Bai Mao sneered, "Since you are experienced in all corners of the world, why would you still ask such an idiot question?" The boy said, "Don't be ashamed to ask." Bai Mao rubbed his brows, hesitating whether to leave this little and go with the umbrella girl ghost surnamed Lu. The young man took out an oiled paper bag from his sleeve. After opening it, it was filled with fragrant sauce meat. It wasn't that the old-fashioned shop didn't have this skill. He spread out his palm and handed it to Palace Master Bai beside him. "Good intentions to take it." Bai Mao smiled, stretched out his hand and pushed it back. "It's just that people and ghost have different paths, so I can't eat this for the time being. When he enters the cave palace realm and becomes a ghost king in the middle 5 realm, he will be able to restore his desire to speak." Just heard. It's the first time to be a human being. Is it even more of being a ghost? Walking in Zhang Yujiao and Jean Louis at the front of the mountain road, the dialogue between the strawshoe boy and the ghost at the end is actually clear and audible. She can't do it just by her cultivation base in the 4 realms, but she has a mysterious talisman given by her master. After the sacrifice, it was extremely concealed, allowing her to hear the subtle sounds within a mile radius. Zhang Yujiao said in his heart, "This young man of unknown origin is a martial artist, either in the 3rd or 4th realm. Considering his age, he is quite impressive, and he is actually a half-assed formation master, although not the kind of upright master. Buying is a mountain formation master, but he knows the Chiman formation method without using aura. You may not have noticed that there are a few dead branches on the ground before you are on the top of Pomo Peak. You are very particular about the orientation. If you are alone against him, if you are not careful, he secretly takes the lead, and once you are punched close by him, you may suffer a big loss." Jean Louis was shocked and said, "Could this guy be the kind of person who is skilled in the world?" Zhang Yujiao shook his head, "Definitely not. He has no spiritual energy in his body, and he is undoubtedly a pure martial artist. Judging from his posture and conversation, he is probably from a similar background to me. They are all liked and cultivated by big families." Jean Louis smiled and said, "How can he compare with you?" Zhang Yujiao said indifferently, "It's just that the body is similar, and it doesn't say that the post-sky encounter and the realm cultivation base." Jean Louis suddenly said angrily, "This Hehuan mountain is really a thief and rampant. Do you really think that no one can take care of them? Wait, sooner or later they will be wiped out by the master led by troops." Zhang Yujiao smiled. These cultivators of genealogy who were born too well, always seem to be so innocent and naive. Hehuan mountain has been able to stand here in the past few years, and it has a deep foundation. Those deliberately displayed beyond the surface combat power, there are still some hidden killers, as well as the intertwined human relationships in 4 countries including the surrounding Qingxing kingdom. That's why they were able to easily stop the attack of nearly 30 Qi practitioners from the Zhang clan in Tianchao County last time. Even before they even went to the small town at the foot of Hehuan Mountain, their vitality was severely damaged. 2 raids and a fair fight, Zhang was seriously damaged. Fortunately, except for the 2 cultivators who died in battle, the rest were all injured, but there was a lot of wear and tear of spiritual tools, especially the attack and defense of dozens of cultivators. Everything was damaged to varying degrees. It was just compensation for repairing and refining things after the war. Zhang held a family ancestral hall discussion after the event, and made a rough calculation. Facts have proved that Zhang clan of Tianchao County still underestimated a Hehuan mountain that he thought was just a group of rabble and stragglers. You must know that among the Qi practitioners who participated in the encirclement and suppression of Hehuan mountain, there are 6 Qi practitioners in the middle 5 realm, and 2 seniors are worshippers and guest ministers who are extremely relied on by the family. Dan Dixian, a talisman who has been famous for a long time, has the supernatural ability to spread beans into soldiers. As a result, in the 3 battles with Hehuan mountain, the old used nearly 300 talos of different grades. Fortunately, the Zhang family in Tianchao County has a warrior with a golden body on the battlefield. Otherwise it would be difficult to get a result that could barely be considered a complete retreat. The former Li Yong, nicknamed Li Yuanwei, was a rich and powerful tycoon before his death. After his death, he somehow became the mountain of one of the 2 prostitution temples in Hehuan mountain. The genealogy rank can be spoken of. If it was north of Dadu, How could a mountain like Li Dang dare to occupy the mountain and set up a shrine to seek death? The Dali court once erected a monument on the top of a continent in mountains. Was it a joke? On the territory of one continent at that time, how many prostitution temples of small vassal states were banned by the Dali court? Not dozens or hundreds but thousands, and some even say 2,000 and 3,000. The problem is that the south of Dadu is no longer in the Dali court, and all kinds of mountain spirits, water monsters, ghosts appear all at once, bypassing the strong national power of the Yunshao dynasty in the south, and selecting those chi practitioners and immortals. Small countries with few houses, especially those gods whose ancestral temples and golden bodies were destroyed by Dali's iron cavalry, have appeared in the world one after another. Officials take what they need. The former earns the incense of the world and sews up the golden body, and the latter takes real gold and silver from the former. Otherwise they will gather in places such as Hehuan Mountain and take refuge in the two palace monarchs. Because Zhang Yujiao was born in the Zhang family in Tianchao County, he knew more about the dark inside story than Jin Luo, such as the ghosts and monsters who took refuge in Hehuan Mountain. Through the secret operation and matchmaking of the two Shenzhen Fu, one by one became a place in several countries. As long as you give enough money to the gods, you can get the title of the imperial court of a certain country. Of course, the rank of the landscape genealogy will be very low, only on the supplementary book of the National Landscape Officialdom, and definitely not in the Academy record. The file is somewhat similar to the white book status of a county magistrate, and it does not account for the number of places in the imperial court system. For example, Palace Master Bai, who is a ghost, probably wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to attend the wedding banquet to give a sum of money to hug the thigh of Hehuan Mountain and improve the situation of any county god. Therefore, the Hehuan Mountain in front of him was ridiculed in private by the old Mr. Hong. It's really the officials on the mountain of Shugua Lily Tu Yamen. As the national teacher of Qingxing Kingdom, why didn't Zhou Xian go with Zhang clan of Tianchao County, who had a good relationship last time? It wasn't because of the three-way seal that the Qingxing emperor had a handle on Hehuan Mountain. Jin Lui remembered something and said curiously, Rainfoot, you talked about the Yunshao dynasty earlier and wanted to smash the 6 stone monuments in the country, but then there was no text. Why? Didn't they all say that Tuiyu was dead? The Dali Song clan returned to the north of Dadu according to the agreement. The Dali dynasty is now unable to control the internal affairs of the countries in the south. Isn't it annoying to keep those few stone tablets on the top of the mountain? The local court and the mountain immortal master, you definitely don't want to keep the stone tablet. The Yunshao dynasty is worried about Dali Song's guilt. But now the Confucian temple has strict rules. No matter how powerful Dali's iron cavalry is, he can't go south again, right? She has been cultivating in the mountains since she was a child. First, she was young, and secondly, the Jin K sect had strict rules, and the direct disciples of the 5 realms were not allowed to know too much about the world outside the mountains. Therefore, I have only heard about the tragic war that the Wild Demon clan fought all the way to Dadu and Dallas capital, and this time I went out with a few brothers and sisters to experience it, so I heard some deeds. She sneaked out of the capital and walked with Zhang Yujiao. Through the dialogue with this young sword immortal, she had seen a lot of real mountain events, mountaintop events, and even some heavenly events. After reporting for many years, what she knew was only fragmentary news. Not to mention that she did not dare to buy Shanshuodi newspapers privately at Xianxia or in without master's permission. According to Zhang Yujiao, including the Yunshao dynasty in the past few years, the countries in the south were eager to move, and there were signs of wanting to destroy the stone monument. But it quickly subsided. The thunder was heavy and the rain was small. Inexplicably there was no text. Zhang Ye's feet showed a dazed look, took a deep breath and said, "It is said that it is because one of Cui Ye's junior brothers, a sword cultivator, returned to the Hauran world alive some time ago. It is not a disrespect to directly call Cui Yu the national master of Dali on the mountain, especially among the younger monks, but rather a rather odd kind of respect." Jin Lu wondered. Didn't Cui Yu betray the line of Wensheng long ago? Does he still have a junior brother? Zhang Yujiao smiled and said, "Who said no?" The golden thread became more and more strange. Besides, just a sword cultivator can shock Banzhou? Could it be a great sword immortal like Wei and Jin of Fengshui Temple? Zhang Yujiao was silent for a moment. In terms of realm and merit, I don't deserve to give this person shoes. Jin Luo was stunned. Zhang Yujiao smiled and said, "Of course, even if I am fortunate enough to meet this person, I will not carry his shoes for him." Jean Louis wanted to ask more about this person, but Zhang Yujiao obviously didn't want to say more about this sword cultivator, so he left it alone. Walking out of the foot of Pomo Peak, Zhang Yujiao said, "It can be confirmed that the boy with the sword on his back is not a 3-level but a 4-level martial artist." Jean Lu stunned. "Young and promising, you can be considered a martial arts genius. No wonder he dares to walk alone in the Hehuan Mountains. A Chi-refining warrior who is less than 20 years old is very rare. If he reaches the age of Jiazi, he can enter the 6th realm, and on the rivers and lakes within a country he can call the wind and call the rain and become an emperor. The general's guest of honor. A pure martial artist is not a Chi trainer who has a high aptitude for cultivation and a state of shattering realm. The most important thing is to climb the martial arts with a steady approach. The Jin K faction has a grandmaster who is respected by the masters. For border bottlenecks?" At the end, Palace Master Bai was giving some gossip to the boy. Emperor Lu of Qingxing country, when today's sun in the eyes of the monks on the mountain, is actually a whiteboard emperor. Seeing the young man's expression of wanting to ask but being reluctant to ask, Bai Mao explained with a smile. The so-called Baiban emperor means that he has lost the most important ones, which are commonly known as the imperial jade seal. It would be very troublesome if the seal was not broken and the jade seal was missing. If it was completely broken, it would be fine. It would be easy to re-engrave the seal. 1 sapphire jade and 1 piece of sandalwood wood. Among the total 12 treasures of the Qingxing emperor, the sapphire seal was used to decree the state of righteousness and seal the foreign barbarians. The Lu clan was not a big country. Long Nyo sandalwood jade seal. It is fair to say that His Majesty the Emperor can just replace it with other jade seals. The most troublesome thing is the gold twisted dragon new heir emperor seal, which is specially used to establish the crown prince. So now the green seal, the crown prince of Xinghua, who is about to be crowned, is neither the eldest son, nor the imperial seal, so it is not a normal name. Otherwise, why have you ever heard of a crown prince's crown ceremony and need to invite someone to watch the ceremony? Oh, what a joke. However, there is news that the Emperor Lu of the Qingxing kingdom had at first begged his grandfather to tell his grandmother in order to have enough weight for the ceremony. Took a lot of time and effort. Except for the Minister of Rights and Shirlang, the other 5 high-ranking officials and honorable people were sent out. As long as any famous sect on the mountain is willing to go to the capital, they will give money. I just don't know that there is no movement suddenly, and there are many immortal mansions that are pretentious, so forget it if they don't come. The officials who bowed down to the immortal masters as grandsons all returned to the capital. Only a little bit of wind was revealed, as if the Emperor Lu had invited a big man. As for the specific big man, God knows, it can't be the gods or the sect. The members of the Zushi Hall of Xingyang Mountain are here. I guess it is still a false shot to give myself a step down. In the end, it is still a few friends on the mountain invited by the owner of the Zhang family in Tianchao County, at most 3 or 5 Jindan Earth Immortals, to help support the scene, or else please move a nascent soul. The young man nodded suddenly and said, "So that's the case. Why, the seals of King Xinghua were succeeded by Hehuan Mountain." "I guessed it for you." Bai Mao nodded, raised his hand and shook his sleeve. "You didn't know we have a famous nickname here? How to say? Little Shujian Lake. What's the matter? You kid haven't even heard of Shujian Lake?" "Just heard." Bai Mao was so choked that he had to ask another question. Should the True Realm sect know? The young man shook his head. Bai Mao will be suspicious. Then the sect master Lu and the true monarch Zhejiang the immortal Lu must have heard of it, right? Even if you have never heard that the last sect is the True Realm sect of Natong Yezhou Yuguazong, these 2 famous Xianxia Yeshu who are in Aquarius should have heard of some of their deeds. As a result, the boy asked a question that made Bai Mao almost mad. This true monarch Zhejiang has become the suzerain? You still know that not everyone can be the head of a sect? Bai Mao turned to look at the young man who was holding the sauce meat in one hand while chewing slowly, smiled angrily and then explained patiently, "They are all just Lu, they are not one person, a fairyland. Our treasure bottle, the first person in the history of the continent, Xianxia Yeshu, who took the lead in entering the Jade Realm and the Immortal Realm, is really a person who can't be more powerful than the sky. As for that true monarch Zhejiang, he is also an extremely powerful immortal. I heard that this old immortal's water technique is so high that it is the best in the whole continent. Qing Qian's water technique of Qingxing Kingdom is already powerful enough, right? This true monarch Zhejiang is not enough to see. This is what Qing Qian himself said. And this Lu Zhejiang is now the chief worshipper of the True Realm sect, Jade Pure Realm, where the dojo is in a feng shui treasure land called Xianxia Island. I heard that he used to be the co-owner of Shujian Lake for a while in the early years. What kind of place do you think Shujian Lake is? Before the True Realm sect took over, it was called real lawlessness. Every day they would kill them. They were all chi practitioners who died. I have to worry about whether I will die suddenly. Hahuan Mountain is nothing compared to Shujian Lake. Speaking of which, Bai Mao was complacent. Damn, he only spent money through a few snows not long ago, and only then did he know that there was a saying, upper 5 realms above the earth immortal. I originally thought that the so-called land gods were the ultimate cultivators of chi practitioners. The boy asked, in this book Jane Lake, besides sect master Lu and Jinjuan Zhejiang, who else do you know about the old gods? Bai Mao choked for a moment. Indeed, it's not that he is well informed, it's just that the 2 old immortals of Shujian Lake are too famous. As long as they are chi trainers who go down the mountain and walk through the Xianxia ferry, no one knows who they are. In addition, asking him to name a few masters from Yishio's background really stumped Palace Master Bai. Bai Mao hesitated for a moment. I really know a master of Taoism, the leader of the 5 Islands sect. It is said to be a ghost immortal surnamed Zheng Yang. Aptitude and fortune are rare, even in the Shujian Lake where the monks gathered, is also a talented person who can be counted in the sky. When he was young, he could practice several Dao rectification methods at the same time, and his future achievements in the Dao can be imagined. The young man smiled and said, 5 Islands School? The name is really sloppy. It occupied 5 islands in Shujian Lake? After the expansion of the site, there will be a few more islands. What should I do? Bai Mao stared. Be careful. The Wu Dao faction, under the eyes of the True Realm sect, can pull up a sect flag. How is it that these ant characters can make fun of them casually? What's more, Bai Mao is quite yearning for the 5 Islands sect. After all, it is a mountain where ghosts gather, and he always thinks about what he would do if he cultivated there. It's just that Hahuan Mountain and Shujian Lake are separated by mountains and rivers, and there are countless Shanxuixian Mansion and Qinghuang temples at all levels along the way. How could he, a ghost from the lower 5 realms, reach the Wudao school smoothly and meet the Xing Xian? Probably because of the Wu Dao faction. The umbrella girl in front deliberately slowed down her pace and finally walked side by side with them. A willow leaf appeared on her shoulders again. Just now, I accidentally heard the conversation between the 2 of you. Now, are you just talking about Shu Jianhu and the 5 Island sects Xing Xianxia? Bai Mao laughed and said, anyway, they are all people from the horizon who have never been in contact with each other in their entire lives. When they have nothing to do, this official will show off some landscape knowledge with Brother Chen casually. She hesitated and asked, Palace Master Bai also wants to try his luck at the Wudao school? The sword-backed boy wondered. Also? She twisted the oil paper umbrella and sighed softly. It's such a huge treasure continent. It's rare to have a place where ghosts don't have to worry about the precariousness of the night. How can you not be fascinated by it? The boy carrying the sword said, it's said that the tree moves the dead and the people live. If Miss Lu really wants to do this, she can really try her luck at the Wudao faction. It's better than hanging out here. Maybe one day she will be joined by the imperial troops and horses. The immortal master on the mountain was wiped out. Bai Mao coughed. Don't say such bad words. She didn't mind. If you're a ghost, you're still afraid of bad luck. The young man raised his hand, made a mental calculation and nodded to himself. Miss Lu, I calculated a hexagram based on your surname. Going to the Wudao school will make a big difference. The headless female ghost raised her hand and covered her mouth with a coquettish smile. Young Master Chen, my surname is not Lu, and the surname Lu and the love of sacrifice are all rumors from outsiders. Bai Mao suppressed a smile. The young man withdrew his hand silently and continued to eat the sauced pork. After eating the last piece, he tucked the oiled paper into a ball and put it in his sleeve. He clapped his hands, thinking that the embarrassment he had just felt had disappeared with the wind, and asked, Palace Master Bai. Lu. Girl, the previous kind of talisman mount looks both bright and practical. Where can you buy it, and after you get it, will the daily expenses be big? Bai Mao said, it's not an ordinary thing, it's very expensive. It is said that this kind of thing can be regarded as a personal talisman boat, and the small ferry that is a little far away may not be sold. Even the big Xianxia ferry has to take luck. There are no good things. Even if you have money, you may not be able to buy them. As for people like us, just take a look. The young man said, I just asked the talisman, how much money I need to ride 1,000 miles. Bai Mao shook his head and said, how do you know such secrets? The umbrella girl said with a smile, if you have never encountered an oncoming gale, you don't need to go against the wind for a long time, and you will spend about 10 snows in the wind for thousands of miles. Bai Mao was speechless and I was obedient. This is really expensive. It is too expensive to be so generous. After realizing it, Bai Mao asked, why don't you ask the price of a piece of talisman paper? The young man sneered, fool, I only have a few dollars in my pocket, can I afford it? Then you also ask about daily expenses? You're not happy to pick up a talisman mount folded into paper on the side of the road? Bai Mao endured. The female ghost asked, young Master Chen, can you ask me you are a pure martial artist? The sword-backed boy was so frank that he nodded and said, to tell the truth, the young man started to practice martial arts, because his aptitude is good and he has the guidance of a master, so he is proficient in 18 martial arts. Therefore, in recent years, the main energy is still on the practice of superior swordsmanship, thinking about how to create a few brilliant swordsmanship, to be with a peer who is both a hard worker and a friend so as to distinguish the winner and loser, and at the same time learn thunder technique in the formation method, but it can only be said that it is a small achievement in the Taoism and has not yet entered the room. Generally speaking, I do not easily shake these with outsiders. It is a taboo to make deep conversations, not to mention I am afraid that I will scare others if I am not careful. Palace Master looks at me on Shan and Miss Lu is a kind-hearted person so it doesn't matter. Bai Mao couldn't help but tease, how old are you now 14-5? How did you come to juvenile martial arts, isn't young martial arts better? As for Lei Fa, Palace Master Bai didn't even want to ask. He was used to it. This strawshoe boy surnamed Chen would come when he liked it. The female ghost also smiled and said nothing. She just wondered in her heart if this young man is really a pure martial artist in the qi refining realm. Why is he so introverted that even she and Bai Mao could not notice it at all? This is probably a realm that only martial masters in the 3 realms of refining gods have. She once was in the town at the foot of the mountain, and was fortunate enough to see a warrior with a golden body. Walking in the night, even if she didn't deliberately burst into fistful energy, to a ghost like her, it was like a round of scorching sun. Get off the ground. Teach her not to look directly. So much so that all the towns that were mixed with fish and dragons avoided their edge and closed their doors, and no one dared to say a word of cruelty. But when this person entered a wine shop and asked for a bowl of wine to drink, the old man's scorching sun-like appearance of a martial artist disappeared instantly, and he became no different from the ordinary masters in the market. The sword-backed youth sneered, pedant and sour Mr. Dong Rong, I only know how to talk to me here. I met Zhang Jianxian in Tianchao County before but I didn't see you say a word. Bai Mao couldn't bear it anymore and said angrily, Chen Ren. An I Bodhisattva still has 3 points of anger. Stop saying some weird things to this official. It's endless. Are you really afraid that this official will turn against you? The young man said solemnly, you may not be a good official but you are a good person. Now you can only be regarded as a good ghost. Besides, we are still brothers from each other. How can you not hear a few words that are offensive to your ears? Cultivation is also cultivation. Living and eating and drinking are all cultivation. Taoist monks, whether a Taoist heart is tough, how important is it not? If I only talked about this, Bai Mao would really listen. The problem is that this guy has a few words from the bottom of his heart. I am a pure martial artist so naturally I don't need to practice like this, all the time is punching and kicking so don't talk to me. I say some weird things that come and go, otherwise I will hurt the friendship of my brothers. Those of us who practice martial arts, especially those who practice martial arts from other schools, have a bad temper. The female ghost holding the umbrella looked pitiful and looked at Palace Master Bai. She leisurely accelerated her pace, her feet did not touch the ground and she drifted away. The young man saw that Palace Master Bai had been persuaded by his own reasoning, nodded, said something that a child could be taught, and then asked casually, what kind of Taoist method is the head of the Jin-K sect? Do you think Yupujing is roadside Chinese cabbage? Bai Mao looked helpless, carefully glanced at the golden thread in front of him and said in a low voice, but our Qingren, I heard that there is indeed a Taoist root of jade, and the Hehuan Mountains say that this powerful Taoist person has reached the mysterious realm of separating the way and dispersing the body. The yang sits in a small world, transforms at will, and the yin travels thousands of miles away. There are many mountains and rivers in the surrounding countries, and there are countless strange people and scholars. Only the ancestors of the Zhang family in Tianqiao County and Zhao Fujian of Hehuan Mountain can be equal to them. Especially the one-handed five-element gold master's unique thunder technique, which is mysterious, and its power is unimaginable. The young man sneered and said, "There is nothing mysterious about the way of cultivating Lei Fa in this world. Aside from the secret teaching of the five thunders of Longhu Mountain, it's just that if there is a timely rain in the body, each of the internal organs will condense into a cloud, which will be divided after that. Out of the three schools, the inferior method, the eyes are itchy and the eyes twinkle like electric light. The three dantian are connected in a line, affecting the internal organs, and the sudden rumbling makes thunder. The middle method is nothing more than the mutual stimulation of yin and yang, such as refining three. The hanging mirror on the handle, different from Daoist formulas, becomes a thunder letter, which is used to reflect the sun and moonlight. It shows the heavenly secrets in the cave of the Dan room, like the words on the wall, which can be clearly seen. As for the superior method, it is not difficult to say. Practice transforming into a single body to achieve the great world. Everywhere in the caves are thunder pools, mastering yin and yang creation, grasping the heaven and earth cardinals, summoning spirits to become officials, and making thunder." Bai Mao pretended to agree and turned his head to give a thumbs up to the sword-backed boy. It would be a pity not to be a storyteller under an overpass, or to set up a roadside stall. The umbrella girl was thoughtful, but she held back and did not turn around. Zhang Yujiao frowned slightly and asked in his heart, "Jinlu, does this person have a basis for explaining the three types of thunder methods on the mountain? Bullshit? Big and unworthy?" Jinlu smiled and said, "Anyway, it's only the content that he downgraded to the inferior method, and it's a little bit related to the orthodoxy of Lei Fa. If a Qi practitioner has really cultivated to a certain level, there will be a stage where the eyes are itchy, and then the internal organs are like rain. As for what makes a mirror, the text of Lei Han appears on the inner wall of the cave. I have never heard of it. At least our Jinke faction is in the vein of Lei Fa. There is definitely no such statement." Bai Mao asked with a smile, "Young Master Qin, where did you learn this wonderful saying?" The young man crossed his arms around his chest and walked like a fly and said, "That's what it says in the book." Jean Louis, who was separated by a mile from the boy, couldn't help laughing. Originally, she planned to return to the Qingxing Kingdom's capital, so she asked the senior sister who was already in the cave. In fact, there is no road to go to Hehuan Mountain. In the past, the official roads and country roads have long been buried by weeds. There are many dead trees along the way, and there are occasionally broken walls. The appearance of the village in the past can be vaguely seen. Zhang Yu didn't even bother to take a look at the spirits and ghosts who participated in the marriage ceremony in Hehuan Mountain, so the other party took the initiative to detour, and only dared to stay far away, whispering in the dark, when the pair of young girls who looked like golden boys and girls, really garish. More importantly, the burly man behind the girl is like a golden signboard that clearly reveals his identity. Qing Qian's Jinke faction of Qingxing Kingdom, even in this Hehuan Mountain area, is still equivalent to a gold medal for avoiding death. Of course, the premise is that the genealogical master of the Jinke faction don't go too far here and randomly kill those who have roots and have incense with the two mountain palaces. Bai Mao asked curiously, "Brother Qin, can you tell me the truth? What are you doing here?" "While practicing martial arts and refining swords, I wandered the rivers and lakes and collected some bronze coins by the way so that I could save a copper coin sword that can slay demons and eliminate demons. In the capital of Qingxing Kingdom, I heard that there are many sneaky spirits here, so I wanted to come here. While honing what I have learned is mixed and I have a place to use it. If I really confess here, I can only blame myself for not being good at learning, and I can't blame anyone." The young man raised his hand and pointed to the scabbard. "Have you seen it? The best scabbard in the world must have a superior multiplication sword to be considered a good match. Although there is no real magic sword in the scabbard's Peiran sword energy is full and ready to come out. Once the sword is officially launched against the enemy, the sword light TSK is terrifying. Brother Bai, you're not an outsider, so I'll tell you the truth. Someone Qin wants to open up a smooth path for everyone in the world of swordsmanship." Bai Mao was really fed up with this brainless little bastard, and took out a piece of snow from his sleeve to spend money. "Qinren, find a gentleman and take care of it. Really listen to Big Brother Bai's advice." The straw shoe boy snorted, and he really reached out and took the snow money. Bai Mao immediately regretted it. How could he talk about this fellow? He really pretended not to hear what he meant, so he grabbed the boy's fist with his backhand and couldn't stand it. Good people have good rewards, brother Bai, let go. It's not worth it to lose a heroic spirit for such a small amount of money. Brother Chin, what kind of background do I come from? You have long seen it through the copper coins in Pomo Peak. It's really not a good person, a hero or anything. Return the money to me and I will call you brother in the future. At this moment, not far from the town at the foot of the mountain, a cavalry army suddenly appeared. There were only a few cavalry troops. Zhang Yujiao showed a solemn expression for the first time, slowed down his pace and condensed the spiritual energy in his eyes through a natal object, making the young sword Immortal temporarily obtain a kind of breath technique. Jin Luo didn't care much at first, but when she saw Zhang Yujiao holding her breath beside her, she realized that the matter was not simple, and immediately put her fingers together, silently recited the Daoist formula, and wiped it in front of her eyes. In an instant she was horrified to discover that the light cavalry was unusual. The female umbrella ghost walking behind them stopped early and lowered the oil paper umbrella slightly to cover more of her figure. Because Bai Mao is also a ghost, it can see the visions that Qi practitioners in the world can only see if they need all kinds of supernatural powers and the blessing of secret techniques. In ancient battlefield sites, there are often some kind of heroic spirits in armor. Because of a certain obsession they roam the world. If they hold weapons there will be a strange scene of golden light from the tip of the spear and fire from the sky at the end of the spear. That is some history books. The so-called halberd front has fire and it looks like a hanging candle. It's just that this kind of scene is not something that all ghosts and ghosts can have. It is extremely rare and uncommon. It is precisely because it is rare that it makes people jealous. The sword-backed boy asked, "This is?" Bai Mao, who had been silent for a long time, hurriedly shook his head, put his finger against his lips and signaled to stop speaking. "Don't make a sound at this time." Seeing that the young man was about to speak, Bai Mao hurriedly stretched out his hand and grabbed the young man's arm. When the dozen or so cavalry quickly disappeared into the darkness ahead, the flames shone, the line opened and gradually submerged into the small town at the foot of the mountain. Bai Mao dared to breathe and subconsciously wiped his forehead, which was not sweating at all. The young man asked, "Is it a fine cavalry under the command of the Hehuan Mountain Mansion?" Bai Mao shook his head and said strangely, "Don't even think about it. How can Hehuan Mountain have the ability to manage the army?" Bai Mao obviously knew the true identity of the scout Jingqi, but he never mentioned it. Life and death are the same, spring and summer and autumn and winter, all on horseback. Bai Mao changed the topic and pretended to be relaxed. "I'm going to enter the town soon, remember to follow me, don't wander around, if you go astray you will hit the wall with ghosts. The road is full of miasma and the white fog is boundless, twisting and turning, dangerous and dangerous." Entering a small town with colorful lights at the end of the main street, it is connected with the sacred way of Hehuan Mountain. There is an attic on the side of the road, and there is an ancient tree with luxuriant branches and red paper beside the building. The ghostly land is full of gloom as if the moonlight is cold. Rows of bright red lanterns hung on both sides of the street, and many shops had their doors open, shadowing the shadows, but there was almost no sound. The umbrella girl seemed to be very familiar with the town. She turned around, waved goodbye to Bai Mao and the boy, then walked into an alley and disappeared without a trace. Bai Mao told the young man the general origin of the shops on both sides with his heart. How and why he could not provoke him, he just walked to one place. There were several charming women with thin dresses beckoning on the second floor, and the palace master Bai slowed down and asked the young man beside him if he could drink. Drinking flower wine. They also said that there is nothing to fear here, the business is fair, they don't eat people, they only eat money, they only need 2 snows to spend money to drink a pot of wine. As for how long a pot of wine can be drunk, it depends on their own. That's it. Palace Master Bai immediately smiled, but it could be considered a cannibal, otherwise how could it be called a hero mount? The young man just crossed his arms around his chest without looking sideways. He sneered, "Yo, Palace Master Bai got excited when he talked about this?" Bai Mao had to give up. In the building at the end of the street, the first floor can drink, the lights are brilliant, bright as day, and it is full of people who are ready to climb the mountain and participate in the recruitment. Bai Mao just spent a piece of snow money, asked for a corner seat in the restaurant lobby, told Qin Ren to sit down. Don't take the initiative to cause trouble. Whoever came to the door just reported his name, and Bai Mao himself run to deliver the congratulations. Below the archway at the foot of the mountain, there is a table covered with red silk and satin. There is an old man in brocade clothes who looks like a manager, who is calling his name loudly, and a bookkeeper is responsible for writing the gift list. Half a caddy of thunder fire burns red apricots and a water vein refines Biden. Mrs. Pipa of Tianlai Cave, send 1 lei shing and 1 water pill to Xianxia. The feather clothes are often hazy and the mink is fishing in the dragon pool. Immortal Halung, here we are. 1 red envelope and 18 snow money. The old man named Black Dragon Immortal glared. Huh. The steward immediately sneered and said, I reported an error, it's 80. The young accountant, who had already written 18 coins, raised his head with an embarrassed look on his face, and was slapped on the head by the old steward. Will it be written off and rewritten again? When the master Xianjun, who was watching the sea, climbed the mountain, the steward was still scolding the accountant. Will you eat fish maw? The Demon King lives on the Ape Road and his fists and feet are unparalleled. Tang Kun, the great master of Tang, come to the door tonight to congratulate. 1 box of gold and 2 boxes of jewelry. Withered Bones turned to be the mansion master. He was a high-ranking official before his death. Wedgeseiling's innocent mansion was superfluous master 50 pieces of snow money ancient ink. A few ingots. Bai Mao immediately bowed his head and bowed his waist, rubbed his hands together and whispered with a smile. Steward you, this set of ancient ink is made by the imperial government and is worth a little money. The steward nodded and reminded the young accountant. Add the word imperial control to Palace Master Bai. A personal talisman boat like a grasshopper boat, broke through the air and landed in an instant. A burly and strong man came with 2 maids. One of them gathered the talisman boat with a pinch, and the strong man stretched out the size of a fan. He borrowed the talisman boat with his palm and pushed away the impediment that was in the way. As expected of a martial artist of the 6 realms, he directly threw the impregnated 2 feet away. He didn't talk nonsense with the steward of Hahuan Mountain. He just took the 2 maids and went straight to the mountain. To ask him to pay out is to wait for the rooster to lay his eggs. The old steward was hesitant to say anything, but let it go after thinking about it. This owl claims to be unconvinced by no one in this life, and only admires the gentleman Wei Shanjun of Beiyue. Seeing the strong man hugging the 2 mother-in-law and walking far away, the steward turned his head and snorted. What Ezhou Mountain Lord, what a majestic god, is something like you qualified to admire? Bai Mao returned to the restaurant and found that the figure of the sword-carrying boy had disappeared. He smiled bitterly, drank wine and then called the shop assistant to check out, but he was told that he had already paid. In the Shinto way in the mountains, Zhao and Yu, the 2 Taoist masters, appeared together, as if they were going to welcome the distinguished guests in person at the gate of the mountain. On the other side of Splashing Mo Peak, 2 young men fell here in the wind. One was wearing sackcloth with his feet on climbing sandals, and the other was wearing a black-blue python suit. Because his surname is Fu, he is from the old Dragon City, and he is still a chi trainer who can participate in the discussion of the ancestral hall. The latter shook his head with a face full of indifference. He squinted and looked into the distance as soon as he said it. A dazzling sword light accompanied by a multicolored firefly came in a blink of an eye. It was a solemn-faced young man with a Dao crown. He shook his sleeves and condensed a splendid cloud into the pattern of the robe and talisman on his body. Woman, as she stood, the long sword swept into her back sheath. The young man in linen had a bright smile and he took the initiative to say, Hahuan Mountain U formation, see the process, real person Miss Kaichin. Fu Qi clasped his fist and smiled. Old Dragon City Fu Qi Si Qingguosher Zhang Jianxian. Zhang Kaichin nodded with a smile. Qing Qian asked, what is the relationship between Fu Nanhua and you? Fu Qi smiled and replied, if the generation is calculated according to the family tree, I can call him uncle. If I meet him outside, I can only call the city owner, otherwise the uncle will definitely not be willing to pay attention to me. At the gate of the mountain, the 2 palace lords and Taoist companions handed over to a distinguished guest at the same time. Among them Zhao Fujuan and the cultivator laughed happily. Brother Qin Ju, I have finally waited for you. Yu Fujun asked in a heartfelt voice. Young Daoist Qin, didn't Tian Xianxia come together? As for the masters of Qinju and Tian Hujuan, they are absolutely not allowed to move. In fact, even this Tian Xianxia is difficult to invite. Sure enough, Qinju shook his head and said, Sister Tian needs to retreat in the near future. A young man with a sword on his back sat on top of a well in a small town, his arms wrapped around his sleeves. He saw the scrivener Hetuang who came in a hurry and asked with a smile, "Palace Master Bai isn't drinking over there, why are you wandering around?" Bai Mao breathed a sigh of relief, stretched out his finger and clicked on the guy who was really wandering around. He laughed angrily. "I said don't walk around, what are you doing here?" The boy jumped down from the mouth of the well, touched the ground gently with a pair of straw sandals and said with a smile, "Sit in the well and watch the sky and take a good look at what the world looked like in my eyes 30 years ago." Bai Mao listened to it like a cloud and always felt that this young ranger surnamed Chen was very spiritual, so he didn't think much about it and couldn't help complaining. "Do you really think this is an ordinary town? Walk around, leave quickly, it's about to climb the mountain, let's take you out of the town first, this kind of right and wrong place hiding dragons and crouching tigers shouldn't stay for a long time." The sword-backed boy smiled and said, "What hidden dragon and crouching tiger is nothing compared to my hometown and small town. It's far worse." Bai Mao grabbed the young man's arm and dragged him out of the alley without any explanation, and said with a smile, "Your hometown is the town of Huaihuang County in Lizidongshan?" No matter how ignorant Palace Master Bai was, he knew that in that palm-sized place, there were many cultivating geniuses who could drown him by spitting, and the key point was that each one was younger than the other. The young man was shocked. "Brother Bai, you can guess this but you can't hide it. He is also an expert who can count." "It doesn't matter, did you think that Miss Lu was not named Lu? The sky counts as one miss, so that's right." "It's alright, don't talk nonsense, send your kid out of the town, the official will go up the mountain and we will part ways." "Brother Bai, what do you think, my surname is Chen and the surname Chen in Lizhu Dongtian is also surname Chen, eh? Don't you have to guess?" Bai Mao was so happy that he always grabbed the opponent's arm, slapped the boy directly on the head and scolded with a smile, "Good guy, this can climb relatives. According to what you said, my surname is Bai. In the legend, the most proud of the world, what is the relationship? Palace Master Bai, gentleman speaks and does not do anything. Let your kid have a little memory." Bai Mao slapped it again, but this time it was blocked by the boy reaching out. Bai Mao let go of the other's arm, took out a long-cherished Huangshi talisman from his sleeve and said in a low voice, "Let's go out of the town, hurry up. Someone just said that they saw the direction of Pomo Peak." There was movement and it was not small. Among them there was a sword light. It is very likely that the female sword fairy from the Zhang family in Tianchao County has arrived. Take it easy, the outside world says she has a bad temper. Great, the sword is very ruthless. If it is her, Hehuan Mountain will definitely not sit idly by, so you'd better detour. This barrier-breaking talisman should be regarded as a parting gift. Damn. My friend, don't meet again. When they reached the border of the town, the boy with the sword backed away and said with a smile, "Brother Bai, to be honest, I'm friends with the female sword Immortal as well as that Qingju who just climbed the mountain. If you see me, you really have to find a gentleman. Take a look at your knees. Believe it or not, we're gone, there are still a few small things to deal with. In short, when you get to the mountain, if something happens you can shout and either Zhang Kaiqin or Shujian Lake's Qingju, just do it. Tell them, you know a man surnamed Chen who wears straw sandals, carries a sword on his back, loves to drink wine, met you by chance, hit it off and made an appointment to have a drink in the capital of Qingxing Kingdom in the middle of this year." The crane cloak scribe smiled and nodded. There are many pleasant things in life, returning home, drinking fine wine, seeing 100 flowers blooming, playing games in the shade of pine trees, waiting for the full moon in the Mid-Autumn Festival, listening to the wind, and reading behind closed doors on a snowy night. Tonight I have to add another young man to brag that he is Lizhu Dong Tianchen Pingon. Sort of coming chapter 10-15. Sorry for the late upload. Pomo Peak is one of the few high mountains in the Hehuan Mountains, but it is not occupied by anyone. There was once trying to open a dojo here, but because the Yufu Jun was bored, he would throw magic weapons at Pomo Peak. Sacrifice a rain flag, throw a pot and play and smash the rocks here. Over time it will become a land without owners. Therefore there are many pits in the Mofing Mountain and the cracks are like cobwebs everywhere. The Daoist is high quality, most of them have skills in the face, and Zhou Xian, who has been in the Tao for 500 years, wears a very high-ranked Tianxian cave clothes, and hangs a simple gilt bell at his waist. This person seems to be rejuvenated. The Taoist priest breathes long, and every time the small circle rotates, there will be a grand atmosphere of the sun rising and the moon setting, and the stars are moving. Bu Qingqian cast a blindfold and fell into the eyes of ordinary middle five monks, that is, a young Taoist monk in a blue Taoist robe. Because Zhao and Yu, two Taoist masters, have 3 daughters and 1 son, Yu Zhen, as the nominal prince of the Divine Palace in Hehuan Mountain, held his breath. In terms of fighting alone, this contemporary head of the Jinke faction is a good player. He once fought against a monster Jindan Jianxiu on the battlefield of Dali, accompanied the capital without falling behind. Invited Qingqian to serve as a protector of the country and asked for 3 resignations. The talisman wearing the ink blue python robe is more interested in the sword fairy of the Tianchao County. Old Longqing and the Qingxing Kingdom Jinke faction have never had any intersection, neither incense or hatred. On the way here, Yu Zhen gave him a general introduction to the situation on Hehuan Mountain. The reason why he stopped at Pomo Peak was to take off the python robe given by the family ancestral hall. Qingqian smiled and said, "I would like to trouble you, young Master Yu, and tell Zhao Fujuan that Pindao won't go to the mountain to congratulate you tonight, so as not to disturb the yaxing of your distinguished guests who are drinking. Indeed, it's like a group of thieves who have fallen for the grass, drinking and celebrating there, and suddenly there is a county captain who is specially responsible for arresting thieves." Qingqian continued, "It's just that the 3 jade seals, among which the heir of the emperor, Baoshi, will be handed over to the poor and brought back to the capital tonight. The other 2 parties need not worry. If the 2 palace lords are unable to part with them for a while, they should be borrowed by your majesty. The 2 princes of Hehuan Mountain are temporarily making things for their study, but they must be returned to the Qingxing Kingdom by the end of the rainy season this year at the latest. Young Master Yu, Pindao will be here waiting for news half an hour if there is no Hehuan Mountain. After sending the royal seal of the Emperor Feng Si, the poor man will come to the door to take all the seals in person, saving Zhao Fiang an extra trip to the capital." Yu Zhen smiled wryly, and Fu Qi, an outsider, also sensed something was wrong. The Lu clan of the Qingxing Kingdom is obviously determined to tear up the face with Hehuan Mountain. Hehuan Mountain is divided into upper and lower mountains following Yuanshan Dense House, Zhao Fiang Wuding Mountain Fanwan House, Yuchuanji. In addition, there are 2 temples of mountain gods. Li Dang is the mountain of Wuding Mountain Temple. Regarding the seal of the 3 parties, the previous offer on the Hehuan Mountain side was the mountain gods of the 2 mountains, Zueyuan and Wuting Temple. This is of course the 2 princes who spoke at the Lion. It is absolutely impossible. If Emperor Lu really dares to condescend like this, I am afraid that he will only become the laughing stock of the Emperor and General of Ezhou and the Immortal Master on the mountain. As for business, there is always a tug-of-war between asking prices and paying back the money. In fact, the 2 sides had secretly negotiated before, and they talked about the fact that a servant of the Ministry of Rites could seal the 2 mountains, but they got stuck on the cost of building the temple. In the end, is it the Lu family's inner palace who paid for it or King Xingwo who gave the credits? Hehuan Mountain would pay for it himself. Yu Zhen hesitated for a while and said in a slightly astringent voice, "Why should a real person embarrass a junior who hasn't reached the door yet? It's better to come early than to come by coincidence. Since I happened to bump into young Master Yu here at Pomo Peak, there is a clear reason for this." Qingqian said indifferently, "It's just a few words, what's the embarrassment? Why, young Master Yu doesn't even give this face to the poor. It's because he feels that he has attached himself to the old Longqing Fujian Hall of Fame, and his eyes are higher than the top. If Pindao remembers correctly, Fujia Yen is in the line of fame, specializing in raising idlers, and according to the ancestral teachings, neither imperial examinations nor military merits in the battlefield, nor can they serve as worshippers or guest ministers in immortal palaces and secular dynasties on the mountain." The old man with the appearance of a young man was obviously beaten with his noble talisman. Fu Qi was not annoyed but became more and more curious. What kind of backing did Emperor Lu of Qingxing Kingdom have recently found so that Qingqian could not even care about the Fu family in the old Longqing? You must know that the patriarch Fu Qi, although he has stepped down as the old Dragon City Lord, is now a cultivator in the Jade Purity realm. He has 2 semi-immortal weapons at the same time. Compared with the old Longqing Fu family, the Jinke faction is better than the monks, the financial resources, and in fact, there is no comparison in terms of contacts. Only the relationship between the old Longqing Fu clan and the Dali domain King Songmu is now known to everyone in Aquarius. Of course, the Fu family of Yen Yutong is only one of the 6 houses of the Fu family, and it cannot be equal to the Fu family of the old Longqing. Moreover, as Xian said, it is relatively difficult to support. The family ancestral hall is at least 20. There are a few as many as 40 people members of the Fu clan in Yenyutong. For hundreds of years, there has only been a symbolic seat in the past. To put it nasty, it was used by the Fu clan to raise waste. However, the Yenyutong Fu clan was out of power within the family, but it was definitely not something that a Jinke faction could provoke casually. The Jinke faction had no cultivator nascent soul sitting on the top of the mountain for more than 300 years. Xian waved his hand. Half an hour is enough for young Master Yu to discuss a countermeasure with the two palace lords. Remember, whether this matter is successful or not, the Hehuan mountainside will give Pindao an accurate word. Yu Zhen in sackcloth sandals sighed, then folded his hands and clasped his fists to say goodbye. Junior will return to the mountain and give a message to the real person. Taking the talisman to the Hehuan mountain, Yu Zhen's face was full of haze, and after staying away from splashing Mo Peak for dozens of miles, Yu Zhen laughed in his heart. "I'll let you see a joke." Fu Qi smiled and said, "Brother Yu thinks of himself too much, and if he is to be laughed at, who can compare to our Yenyutong's Fu clan's son?" Yu Zhen teased. "Yes, why not, the group of sword immortals in Jingyang Mountain." Fu Qi grabbed the collar with one hand, choked the tactic with the other and recited the Dharma tactic in silence, put the python robe on his body into a ball, lowered his head and put it in his sleeve. This old man seems to be a magician, and the way of cultivating the Tao can be described as complicated. The so-called artisans of Fu Qi are not the way of ancient alchemy, but the art of arithmetic. Artisans are often good at arithmetic and proficient in astronomical calculations, but they have always been in a low position among the hundreds of schools of thought, similar to the situation of merchants. Only when he said, "If 1 + 1 really must be equal to 2, then what is the matter of refining qi, refining substances and alchemy in the world?" The artist was ridiculed by the mountain. Yu Zhen asked suspiciously, "How can you see it?" Fu Qi said, "If it weren't for the fact that you were like water and fire, I would have to guess whether Xian and the two palace monarchs came from the same line." Yu Zhen said angrily, "Don't betray you." Fu Qi explained, "The vestment on Xian's body has the scene of the great transformation of Taoism and the galloping and galloping. It is magnificent and breathtaking. It is not an ordinary magic weapon. Compared with the golden bell of the fire that hangs on the waist of the old man, the rank of the treasure that is publicized to the outside world is only higher than that. Even the blue spirit talisman that is said to be able to command ghosts and gods cannot be compared with it." "I hadn't guessed." "Wrong, this robe itself is a book from heaven." Yu Zhen asked, "Can your kid break through the blindness of a land fairy?" Fu Qi smiled and said, "Family handed down tricks." On the robe of the real Xian, the yin and yang qi were vaguely visible. Yu Zhen teased, "What does this have to do with the artist?" Fu Qi, I'm really convinced. You literati who are full of poetry and books, it's true that there are no donkey characters on 3 paper coupons. Fu Qi said in a single word, Xian's robe, which covers the world and praises the gods. The key is that the 7 politics are right-handed. Obviously, it is a treasure that has a long history and it may be older than the history of the Jinke faction. Yu Zhenqi laughed. "What are you talking about?" Fu Qi was helpless for a while. "Being friends with a vulgar guy like you is exhausting. I have to explain to this friend who is not familiar with the language and ink what the 7 political affairs, also known as the 7 luminaries, are astronomical terms, referring to the sun, the moon, the gold, the wood, the water, the fire, the earth and the 5 stars. There was a quarrel, and the dispute between Confucianism and Confucianism about the left-handed and right-handed rotation of the 7 lights has been arguing for a long time. The Confucian sages who compiled the astronomical calendar and the Lu family of the Yinyang family in China, as well as several ancestors of the art masters, have not fought. In the early days, the right-handed theory of the 7 politics had the absolute upper hand, and it almost became the conclusion. Based on this, Fu Qi can conclude that the Taoist vestment with the right-handed celestial image on Xian's body is extremely old. It is really difficult for ordinary Qi practitioners to come into contact with this kind of inside story that seems to be hanging high. Fu Qi is also from the line of Yenyutong, who is rich in books. Qi sure practice unimportant miscellaneous knowledge. It's just that there are still some inside stories, so I didn't say much about the Fu Qi. For example, Xian's robe is very likely to be able to open up the dark, obvious and the way of day and night. In short, it can help Xian walk in the shadows. The way. Fuqi reminded, "Brother Yu, I remember going to my uncle and aunt's side and only said that I was a Shan Zai Xiu from the Yunshao dynasty." Yu Zhen nodded and smiled. "You also remember not to be targeted by my sister. It's a friend, so I kindly remind you." On the other side of Splashing Mo Peak, Zhang Kaiqin asked, "Qing Shibua, will Zhao Fiang really hand over that Fangxi Emperor's seal?" The Taoist priest with a young face said confidently, "If it is normal, he will probably think that I am bluffing and ignore it. I will inevitably take a trip to Hehuan Mountain in person. Tonight is the most prosperous scene of Hehuan Mountain. Zhao Fiang and Yu Chuanji instead, they will be surprised and won't dare to take it seriously. If Zhao Fiang is obsessed, he will have to clear the door for his uncle." The joke of Fuqi is really in one sentence. Zhao Fiang was indeed a disciple of the Jin-Kai sect, and he was favored by a certain Jin-Kai sect patriarch. He was born and has never been able to rank among the descendants of the patriarch's hall. Later there was another disturbance. Zhao Fiang left the line of Jingxian Temple in Qingjing Peak in a fit of anger. In fact, Qingjing Peak is the ancestral mountain of the Jin-Kai faction, and the position of the head of the past dynasties has been firmly controlled by Jingxianan. It was only in Qing Qian's generation that Cui Qingfeng came from behind. That Zhao Fiang was born from a mountain python. He obtained a fortune in Jingxianan, and after practicing Taoism he left the Jin-Kai sect and became a loose immortal. By collecting the jade seal of the subjugated country, he absorbed the dragon energy and used it to supplement the Taoism. This mountain-refining testimonial, cultivated into the golden immortal fruit position mentioned by the Qingjing Peak lineage. Then Zhao Fiang can turn into a Jiaojiao without taking water, and leave Hehuan Mountain, which is both a dojo and a cage, and the sky is high and the earth is wide. A nascent soul realm mountain flood dragon is enough to roam Aquarius continent. Qing Qian glanced at the juniors beside him with an expression of admiration in his eyes and said with a smile, "Kaiqin, no matter what, since that big man has agreed to participate in the ceremony, King Xingwo has no worries." The old man squinted his eyes and looked at the outline of Hehuan Mountain in the distance. "If our borders of Qingxing Kingdom are filled with unpopular goods, they are either demons or ghosts, and they all dare to call themselves Xiaxia Lake. It's too outrageous to make this thousands of miles of mountains and rivers smoky. Fortunately, there is still some time before the mid-year ceremony, otherwise I will be shameless and go to see that Chen Yingguan." Zhang Kaiqin nodded. If Chen Pingon traveled south to the capital of Qingxing Kingdom in the middle of the year and attended the ceremony, then the existence of this place is destined to be unable to cover the fire. It is not ordinary for this young hidden official to hear that there is such a sneaky sight. Unsightly. Not to mention the Lu clan and the Jin-Kai faction in the Qingxing Kingdom, the Zhang clan in Tianchao County where Zhang Kaiqin lives, will also feel uncomfortable. In short, it was she who had gone on a trip to Nujiadu with Hong Yongbo before, and accidentally met the young mountain master who was also hanging out in Baozhai. To his surprise, the other party agreed to participate in the crown ceremony of the Prince of Qingxing Kingdom. The Emperor Lu of the Qingxing Kingdom and Qing Qian, the real protector of the country, made up their minds to join forces with the Zhang family of Tianchao County, and secretly communicate with the other two imperial courts, at any cost, and they must take Hehuan Mountain within 1,000 miles. Clean up and pacify the demons. It would be naive if Hehuan Mountain felt that Qing Qian's appearance this time was just for the three-party jade seal. Qing Qian stared at the Hehuan Mountain and said with a smile, "There is a saying in the market that it is 3 feet of soil in a sunny day and 1 street of mud in rain, to describe a road that is not easy to walk." Zhang Kaiqin smiled knowingly. "Qing Shibua, that's why we need to clean water and splash the lus on the street. Everything is only for the presence of Qin Yingguan of the Luopao Mountain." Qing Qian asked, "Kaiqin, you can persuade this person to come to the capital. It's a miracle." Hong Yongbo, this stuffy gourd, was vague in the letter. "Can you elaborate?" "It is said that this Lord Chen Shan easily does not sell anyone's face." Zhang Kaiqin looked embarrassed and said, "Qing Shibua, there is absolutely nothing to hide, it's just good luck." Relying on the fact that he went to Qingfenfeng several times in his early years, he developed a love affair with Hongbo. Qing Qian smiled and didn't ask any more questions. Just talking about the young hidden official, the old man couldn't help but think of the old woman who accompanied the capital on the battlefield. The young woman with the inabun, her boxing skills are really invincible. It would be interesting if this Zheng Qian, or Pei Qian, the founding disciple of Qin Yingguan, appeared in the town. I don't know how the two rulers feel. On the other side of Hehuan Mountain, Fanwan Mansion is located in Wuding Mountain, Xiaoshan. Zhao and Yu, the two palace lords, personally brought the distinguished guest here, and the shadow wall was actually a huge snow money. When going around this shadow wall, Qin Ju looked at it from the corner of his eye. It was wide or thin. Yu Chuanji once traveled to Shujian Lake, and was an old acquaintance with Tian Hujuan, a female cultivator of Xianxia Island, and had a good relationship. However, at that time Tian Hujuan had not yet formed a pill, but he was still a cultivator in the Dragon Gate realm, and his pedigree status was not the eldest disciple of true monarch Zhejiang Lu Jimao, but the second disciple. It's just that the senior brother had bad luck and met the younger junior brother of a certain demon king. The two sides had a grudge and killed him casually. Master Lu Jimao didn't even pursue the matter. Today Tian Hujuan is the island owner of Sulan Island, a native Jindan cultivator of Shujian Lake, and a genealogical cultivator of the True Realm sect. He has a place in Gonglu Island Zhu Shirtang. It's just that compared to the little junior brother surnamed Gu, he is still the difference between clouds and mud, which pales in comparison. After all, the latter is now the direct disciple of Xing Juzhong in Beidasheng, and there is a gossip that spread to Beipingzu, the fairyland Han Qiao. She is very fond of this nephew. When the banquet living room was seated, Qin Ju found that on the beam of the room, there were wood carvings. Standing there were 3 old gods of Fu, Lu, Shou and a little fairy, which had the beautiful meaning of the auspicious star shining brightly in the hall. In fact, the whole banquet hall was made of Rtu Chuanji. She dismantled a gorgeous ancestral hall from a noble family of a dynasty under the mountain. She then asked the craftsmen to label the parts one by one, and moved them to Wuting Mountain. Almost exactly the same as the old house. Hehuan Mountains uphill and downhill, Ziyuan and Wuding are all changed mountain names. They used to be famous mountains with great history. Tiyun Mountain used to be the mountain of the Prince of Zhongyue in a big country. There was a royal family temple. Wei and the servant of the Ministry of Industry led tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians. Took 10 years before and after. He overhauled the mansion and built more than 20 palaces here. His status was second only to the 5 mountains. It is only said that the Wuting Mountain at the foot, the predecessor of the Fanwan Mansion, was historically the magnificent private residence of a county owner. 2 hosts and 1 guest sitting in the Taisher chair, chatted about the recent landscape anecdotes of Aquarius. For example, the Lingfei Temple in the neighboring country of the Yunshao dynasty in the south has been upgraded to a Taoist palace. Had identity. Qin Ju's master was Chief Lu of the True Realm sect. Now the entire Aquarius, even if you add the Buddhist Guangfu Temple and the Taoist Lingfei Palace, how many sects are there? Yu Chuanji spoke directly, half-jokingly. Brother Qin, Lu Laoqing is an immortal, and he must be aiming to ascend the Great Road. Is it possible for Lu Zhenjuan to take over as the suzerain of the True Realm sect? Qin Ju smiled and didn't take up the conversation. He didn't dare to talk about a topic that could kill people if he was not careful, so he just touted a few words of sect master Liu's hard work. Zhao Fiyang drank a sip of the cloud tea that was fried in the falling Yuanshan temple, and said with a smile, I heard that the great monk at Guangfu Temple just held a ceremony for his promotion last year. On the Luopa Mountain, although the hidden official the Lord. I didn't congratulate myself, but I asked Wei Shanjun of Beiyue to help send a couplet. Guangfu Temple also attached great importance to it and linked it with the couplet of Xiankong Temple in Middle-earth. Qin Ju looked calm, but he was in a complicated mood. He nodded, it's true. If possible, Qin Ju would never want to see the person surnamed Qin again in his life, even if the other party also served as the accountant for his own Xianxia Island for a while. Yu Chuanji said, it is said that this great monk has a profound Buddhist teaching, and has 2 Zen illusions, namely plucking the clouds to fill the Na and putting the tiger back to the mountain, and it is famous for moving a continent. Hearing Fu Yang mention it, according to legend, the late Emperor Dali once summoned this eminent monk to talk about Zen, but when they walked in the imperial garden, all the birds were frightened and the foxes and rabbits fled far away. Emperor Dali asked with a smile. He only heard that the monks who had attained the Tao were walking in the mountains and forests, and the beasts not only did not disturb them, but they went on a blind date and wished to protect the Dharma. Why is it like this today? As a result, guess what? The old monk replied, the old man is easy to kill. Brother Qin, you have a lot of knowledge. Do you know if this is true or false? Qin Ju nodded and said, it happened to be mentioned by the master and this is true. The master also said that the national master of Dali was also on the side at that time, and once said to the old monk, "How can a monk have so many thieves in his heart to kill? Is raising tigers a problem?" Yichunji was stunned. "What do you mean?" She turned to look at her husband. Zhao Fiang pondered for a moment, nodded and said, "It's really the words of the immortal in the clouds. It's unbelievable." After that, Yichunji mentioned a few embarrassing things about Jingyang Mountain. Now, on Beipingzi Mountain, if you don't talk about Jingyang Mountain, which is like a cloud of swordsmen, and don't laugh a few times, it's not called chatting. In fact, the three of them talked about these things, even teasing the Jingyang Mountain that had just been promoted to the sect for a few days, like a rich man in a remote county talking about the richest man in a rich country. Qinju itself is only a Dragon Gate realm. If it is only this realm, it is far from making the two palace masters and Taoist companions of Hehuan Mountain, both of which have golden cores, to be so respectful, and even Yichunji revealed some points when he spoke. Flattery and flattering. In fact, with the means of Zhao Fiyang and Yichunji, it is not impossible to kill a golden elixir together. Last time, the cultivator Zhang of Tianchao County attacked Hehuan Mountain aggressively. A pure old man with a golden body is a stumbling block, and they really want to leave a golden elixir to be a guest at Hehuan Mountain by their couple. Yichunji and Tian Hujuan are old acquaintances, and Zhao Fiyang and Qinju are also friends. When Zhao Fiyang left the Jinkei sect with hatred, he also thought of staying at Shujian Lake, but he came to the secret method of his practice in Shujian Lake. It doesn't fit, and more importantly, the water in Shujian Lake is too deep, not to mention Lu Laoqing of Gonglu Island, who was already in the upper 5 realms at that time, only Lu Jimao of Xianxia Island and Zhongsu of Oriole Island, which one is easy elder. Zhao Fiyang was only in the Dragon Gate realm back then, and of course he didn't dare to occupy the island there to practice cultivation. Time has changed and 100 years have passed. Zhao Fiyang can't imagine that Qinju is a vicious man of Yishio in his bones. Become a genealogy monk of a sect. The fourth miss appeared outside the banquet hall together with Li Dang, the mountain god. She took off the hood, revealing an oval face that was quite similar to that of Lily. Yichunji looked pampered and introduced to Qinju. "Brother Qin, this is the 4th eldest in the family, the youngest. His name is Zhao Yan, who has been spoiled by Fiyang since he was a child, and Fiyang is reluctant to marry her. I don't dare to let her go out. Take her with me. I can still control a little bit. If I get married, I'm afraid that in a few days, I will be kicked out by my husband's family and run home crying." The woman hurriedly gave a blessing. Zhao Yan pays respects to Uncle Qin. Qinju and Yan Yu said, "I heard from the senior sister that the 4 girls are very qualified to practice Taoism. When they were in their early 20s, they entered the realm of the cave. The genius of the sky. Let me see, in the future Hehuan Mountain will directly recruit the son-in-law. Don't marry far away, the fat water will not flow to outsiders' fields." Li Dang hurriedly clasped his fists. "Little God has seen Immortal Master Qin. Genealogical cultivators have their own foundation and way of life, and Yamazawa Yeshio also has his own way of survival. Aquarius has an undocumented pamphlet written by the person who compiled this book. It records the people who should not be provoked by the Immortal Mansion and Dynasty in Izhou, a list of more than 100 people. For example, Qinju and his junior brother Chaozhe from Xianxia Island are all listed in this booklet, but their rankings are relatively low. A lake of books and slips accounted for nearly 1/10 of the list, as well as young monks such as Lu Kaisang from Oriole Island and Yuan Yuan from Gumming Island. Of course, an immortal like Tian Hujuan, the master of an island in Sulan Island, naturally does not need to be on the list. Zhao Fiyang said, "Li Dang, there are no outsiders here, you can speak directly." Li Yan said, "Reporting to the 2 palace lords, Zhang Yujiao and Jinluo's attitudes are relatively smooth, neither nodding their heads nor saying that they will forcibly climb the mountain. Now they are in the small town at the foot of the mountain." Zhao Fiyang introduced the background of the 2 monks to Qinju. Yichunji smiled and said, "These 2 children are indeed cultivators of genealogy. They both traveled in the mountains and waters. Qingqing I and I arrived at the Hehuan mountain boundary." Zhao Fiyang said, "That Zhang Yujiao is a sword cultivator of the middle 5 realm. It should not be underestimated. If he has an accident here, the Zhang clan of Tianchao County will be cut off from his heart and will not give up. Li Tang, you send the order. As long as the other party does not climb the mountain and commits crimes as promised, the town is not allowed to take the initiative to provoke them." Li Dang clasped his fists and took the order. Xiaoguan respects the law of the government. Knowing daughter Mo Ruomu, Yuchuanji asked with a smile, Yener, what does the young sword fairy look like? Zhao Yan picked up a chair and sat down, nodded and smiled, it's pretty. If Qinju wasn't there they wouldn't talk like this. After a cup of tea, Xiao Fiang turned his head to look out the door, saw two figures and snorted coldly, you're still willing to come back. It turned out to be Yu Formation and Fuqi. Yuchuanji was immediately unhappy and stared. Yushin finally came home, what kind of face do you have? It's not your own, so you don't want to see it like this? Zhao Fiang said, if Yushin was my own and dared to stay home all year long, I would know that I was idle outside and would not be willing to share the affairs of the two governments. I would have been hung up and beaten a few times. Yushin looked embarrassed. In fact, Zhao Fiang the stepfather treats him well. He is both a father and a master. He preaches carefully and he can be called a gift from all his money. He also gave him a heavy weapon that can become a treasure, even more kissable than my father. Yuchuanji smiled and asked, who is this little brother? Yuzhen introduced with a smile. A friend, surnamed Yen and first name Shi, is a loose cultivator from the Yunshao dynasty. We walked through the strange Qiufeng temple together and exchanged life for friendship. Zhao Fiang said with a smile, the little brother has a good name, he is famous for his style and he has nothing to shoot. Swallows are entertaining and they are always endless. If this is true, it is really a little fairy. Fu Qi hurriedly clasped his fists. The younger generation pays respects to Zhao Fujuan, Yu Fujuan. Yuzhen is different from his younger sister Zhao Yan. He has been to Shujian Lake before and he is no stranger to Tian Hujuan and Qinju, who are family friends and elders on the mountain, so he said bluntly, just now Chengqian and Zhang Kaiqin were on the other side of Pomo Peak. Showed up, the old man asked his father to hand over the three-party jade seal tonight. When the rainy season ends this year, the other two parties will return to the Lu family of Qingxing Kingdom. If the Hehuan mountainside does not agree to this, the time will start from when I leave Pomo Peak. Within an hour, Chengqian will personally climb the mountain. Qinju's face was expressionless. Zhao Fiang frowned slightly. Yuchuanji wondered, isn't this Chengqian dizzy? Or is it because of his love that he couldn't bear the anger of the Zhang clan in Tianchao County, so he had to give the latter an explanation, but even so, it wouldn't make him like this. Take the old bones to climb the mountain and risk yourself? Yuzhen, have you ever seen the whereabouts of Zhang's children in Tianchao County and the monks enshrined in Qingxing? Are there any Zhu soldiers under Qingqian's command hidden nearby? Yuzhen shook his head. It seems that there are only Qingqian and Zhang Kaiqin. Yuchuanji burst into laughter. Could it be that the two of them, together with Zhang Yujiao and Jin Luo from the town, are going to fight with Hehuan Mountain? Cheng Lauer didn't know how to choose a good day for reincarnation but chose today? The three-party jade seal was originally just a sale of Qingxing Kingdom to break wealth and eliminate disasters. After negotiating the price, there was no need to fight and kill at all. Are you alive or dead? Qing Xinghua is not afraid of hurting its vitality here and losing a battle at the border? Zhao Fiang squinted his eyes and said, if something goes wrong there must be a demon. Qingqian is the most pragmatic person and he will never stand up for the Zhang clan in Tianchao County. Qingqian is an old fox with a lot of shrewdness. When he was young he was good at calculating. Otherwise, there was also a golden elixir in the Jingxian temple of Qingjing Peak. He should have been the best choice to inherit the head. Qingqian, who had been at the top of the line for a few years, took over as the head? Yuchuanji asked, will Zhang Qiong hide in the dark? Zhang Qiong is the ancestor of the Zhang clan in Tianchao County, that is, the great-grandfather of Zhang Kaiqin, the sword immortal. Because of his achievements in the battlefield of the capital a few years ago, he received a third-class no-mind card issued by the Dali Punishment Department. If this old thing is really reluctant to be shameless, Zhang Qiong only needs to hang this waist card, struttingly climbing the mountain, just rummaging through the box, searching for the jade seal everywhere. Zhao Fiang and Yuchuanji really dare not stop it. It's just that the last time the cultivator Zhang attacked Hehuan Mountain, Zhang Qiong didn't show up for some reason. Zhao Fiang's heart became heavy and he thought about it carefully. It's really not possible, I will personally go to Splashing Mofeng. Yuzhen said goodbye and left and arranged for Fu Qi to stay in a mansion. Zhao Yan followed out of the banquet room and Yuzhen asked in a low voice, where's the third one? Zhao Yan looked strange and said with a playful smile, third sister is busy dressing up. Yuzhen didn't ask any more questions. Up the mountain there is a magical place surrounded by snow, but there is a hot spring and the heat is rising. The third lady of Hehuan Mountain and a mountain goddess who fell into the Yuanshan temple are splashing water and playing with each other here. They are all beautiful with white and tender skin, like jade cream condensed fat. After the two sides chased and laughed, the two snow-white ketone bodies were entangled together like weeping. The water in the hot spring is churning, like two white snakes dancing in the water. A young Taoist squatted not far away, craned his neck, widened his eyes and pricked up his ears, but he silently said, "See no evil and hear no evil." After saying goodbye to Bai Mao outside the town, the sword-backed boy walked alone in the darkness, came to a dead tree, and looked at the Hehuan Mountain where the two mountains nestled. It is a pity that limited by the realm of the avatar of the talisman, it is impossible to see it, and the divine powers of the earth, such as shrinking the mountains and rivers and watching the mountains and rivers in the palm, have become extravagant hopes. This is also the reason why he did not go straight to the small town at the foot of the mountain before. If he encounters an accident, it means that the entire great formation will be lost, and he must try his best not to conflict with the earth immortal cultivator. Mountain spirit water monsters, especially the descendants of Jiaolong, actually have two ways of enlightenment. One is the most common way of walking through water, and the other is relatively uncommon and rare, that is, Panshan. Choose a dragon vein with abundant spiritual energy and a stable situation, entrenched in it, slowly refining the root of the mountain, and absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and feng shui soil transportation. It's just that this cultivation path has a high threshold and requires far more blood than the average mountain monster. He looked at one place and said with a smile, "The girl who is not surnamed Lu, why hide her figure? They are all friends." In the field of vision, the oil paper umbrella first appeared out of thin air, and then a pair of embroidered shoes was slowly revealed. Finally, there was the headless female ghost. Compared with splashing moffing, she had an extra package on her body at the moment. The sword-backed boy smiled and said, "The girl has followed her all the way here. Is there something wrong?" She gave 1,000 blessings, took off the package and opened it. It turned out to be the head of a woman with delicate eyebrows. She put the head on the neck and then apologized with a full face. "There was a young sword immortal on the way earlier. When I got to the town there were so many people, so I never had the chance to be alone with Mr. Chin, so I had to do this." When Mr. Chin was alone by the well, just because the nearby alleys happened to be where the cavalry settled, I still didn't want to dare to show up. By the way, young Master Chin, my surname is Zhou, and Chiu with the word Chiu next to the wooden character. You can just call him by his first name, it's his real name. The boy nodded with a smile. "I don't know what Miss Zhou has to do with me." Now that the headless female ghost has a head, she is a little uncomfortable looking at it. Zhou Qi blinked his long eyes in autumn water. "Young Master Chin said earlier, if I go to the Wudao school of Shujian Lake, will I have a chance?" The sword-backed boy was silent for a moment, a little embarrassed. "Nonsense." Zhou Qi shook his head. "I believe Qin Gongzi didn't talk nonsense." The boy smiled and said, "Why?" She smiled sweetly. Women's intuition. The young man didn't seem to be in a hurry to get to the bottom of the matter. Why did the other party sneakily follow him out of the town? Instead he pointed to Hehuan Mountain and asked curiously, "Does Miss Zhou know the roots of Zhao and Yu?" Zhou Qiu nodded and said, "One python and one fox. Both of them are born in the mountains and wild. They are very famous and ordinary monks do not dare to provoke them. The two sides are bounded by a big river. In 100 years, there has been Jiangzhua poisonous python. Jiang Yu has the demon fox said that it was only later that they found out that the two sides had already become Taoist companions. When the war ended, the two princes would each occupy the mountain as kings, repairing the broken hills. Especially Yu Fujian did not know what kind of magical means he had used. Was able to relocate Wuting Mountain here, snuggle up with Suiyuan Mountain, and said it was a dowry to the outside world. In fact, speaking of which, Zhou was a little hard to say. The young man was an old river and lake and said indifferently, "The two mountains are like mating ends." Zhou Xiao was surprised, but now that the situation is urgent she can't help but be suspicious, she said with determination. "But it is rumored that Zhao Fujian is actually from an orthodox fairy mansion, so he can suppress his nature and ill will by virtue of Taoism. In Yuanshan, there has been a hidden cave with heavy restrictions since ancient times. There are stone walls and cliff carvings. There once left a mysterious content similar to prophecy. The poisonous fog flying kites, the fishy wind and the white python plate, once turned into a flood and returned to the sea, only the old man remained in the mountain. The ancient tree at the gate of the town is a prototype of Zhao Fujian's dragon horn. The snake slough seen by ordinary sages is actually a trick, and the rest are similar, the saying that the dragon's chi entangles the ancient tree, and the hot spring in the falling kite mountain often has rainbow light coming out of the waste pond, but it's just a rumor that Zhao Fujian deliberately let people go out for a walk. The boy wondered, Miss Zhou knows so much. Zhou Qiu hesitated, I'm a spy. As soon as these words came out, the two were silent. In fact, Zhou Qiu had been waiting for the other party to inquire about her intentions, but it turned out that the other party seemed not interested at all, so she couldn't just waste time. She had to take the initiative to say, we can't leave the Hehuan mountain boundary, so I thought of asking Qin Gongzi to help me take a little benefactor, take him out of this place and then go north, go to the capital of Qingxing Kingdom, or go south. Us. There are some unspeakable hidden things. Please forgive me for not being able to tell young Master Qin in detail. The strawshoe boy said, Miss Zhou, I'm an old river and lake. If it were you, would you like to be involved in such a thing in such a poor place? Zhou Qiu said, I implore young Master Qin to believe that we have absolutely no malicious or sinister intentions. She took 2 coins out of her sleeve bag, a bag of xiaoshu money, a bag of snow money. The former is a reward and the latter is a toll for the person who is in our favor. Qin Gongzi only needs to take him away from the Hehuan mountain boundary and then part ways. Thereafter that young Master Qin just went his own way. This person who is kind to us is life or death, but by destiny, it has nothing to do with young Master Qin. The young man smiled and said, even if I'm stupid I can trust you, but you can trust me like that? Zhou Qiu sighed quietly, it's really impossible. The young man nodded and said, Miss Zhou's words are the truth and I like to hear them more. I'll pay with one hand and pay with the other hand. I'm away from home, there are many friends and many paths. This time I'll take it. Zhou Qiu threw out the 2 bags of immortal money. She turned her head to look not far away and said softly, Qingyi, come out. You heard everything, just leave here with young Master Qin and don't come back in the future. It is also an umbrella holder, but it is a person from the sun, not a ghost. Obviously these 2 oil paper umbrellas have the effect of blinding the eyes. Zhou Qi waved goodbye to him without giving the other party a chance to speak. She disappeared in a flash. A dark boy with red eyes, biting his lip, closed the oil paper umbrella and held it in his hand. The two looked at each other. They were about the same age and size. The dark-skinned boy also carried a cotton wrap. The dark-skinned boy had a hoarse voice and took the initiative to ask, Listen to Sister Zhou, you are a master of all corners. A 4-level martial artist, he has a concept. The sword-backed boy nodded and said, Correct me, I'm not an ordinary master, I'm a serious martial arts master. Ordinary people from all corners of the world who are not good at learning skills, can't go to a small town at all, let alone a small town. That small town boy just chatted with this man named Chen Ren, and he was a little annoyed. Sister Zhou and them, did you really see the wrong person? He sighed, My name is Qingni Cyan Green Muddy Mud, not that intimacy. The sword-carrying boy waved his hand. It's a pseudonym, even the surname is ignored. You don't need to explain it to me like this, and my nobleman forgets things so much that I can't remember it. Qingyi choked for a moment. Qinren asked, Why did you close the oil paper umbrella but don't open it so that you can hide your figure? Qingyi hesitated for a moment, then explained, I don't have enough spiritual energy. It's already the limit to get here from the small town. The sword-backed boy began to move. After a while, Qingyi stopped and said in shock, Aren't we staying away from Hehuan Mountain? Why did we return to the town? Qinren said angrily, You didn't see that your elder sister Zhou was already determined to die, and was planning to go to justice generously? Qingyi stood on the spot. Qinren turned his head and said with a smile, So afraid of death? Did Zhou Qi raise a little white-eyed wolf? In the end, Qingyi still didn't scold. The sword-backed boy walked straight forward, his arms crossed his chest. Follow up, what are you afraid of? Go back to the small town, it's just a Hehuan mountain, a little evil spirits, nothing more, talking and laughing in ashes. Qing Ni's face was pale and colorless. The very heroic young man with a sword on his back suddenly looked flustered. One bowed and rushed forward, jumped towards the grass on the side of the road, waved vigorously and shouted in a low voice, No, there are ghosts passing by. Hurry up and hide. Seeing that the green mud was still stunned, he had to swear and jump up, grab the dark boy's neck and throw it to the side of the road. He was about to fall into the grass like a cloud and was about to fall heavily into the grass. But Qin Ren grabbed his shoulder and let it go gently. In the end, the two of them lay on the back of a small dirt together, and Qin Ren reminded in a low voice, "Little fool, if you can open the oil paper umbrella, hurry up. If you can't, hold your breath. Don't reveal the yang energy of the living. These ghosts are fierce, the most sensitive to this. Don't implicate me." Qing and I stretched out his hand and wrapped his neck around his neck. It hurt a little and said in a muffled voice, "You don't need to teach me." He grew up in a small town and is most familiar with how to deal with ghosts. More than a dozen ghosts beat gongs and drums, leading a guy who looked like a general in armor, saw the footprints on the ground and sniffed again. It suddenly shouted, "Who? Get out and die." Kingna's heart tightened and she didn't know where to show her motives. Logically speaking, according to the formula taught to her by Sister Zhou, she would never reveal her yang energy. The dark-haired boy turned his head to look and was immediately stunned. I saw that guy with the sword on his back was almost crawling on the ground, and he had already escaped several feet away. It was really fast. In the blink of an eye, Kusama rustled and disappeared. Is this guy going to leave him alone? Just receive the money, just let it go by yourself? Don't the books say that the Daoists are all heroes who sacrificed their lives? Taking a step back, how much should I talk about morality and courtesy and shame? Qingmi had no way to hide, no way to escape, so he had to get up the courage to stand up. According to Sister Zhou, Qingmi did not have the qualifications to practice martial arts, and only learned some three-legged cat kung fu to strengthen her body. The key is to deal with ghosts, which is meaningless. And that Uncle Lu said that people who practice martial arts, if they don't have the upper body of boxing, they are all empty talk. It's okay to deal with a few market ruffians, and it's okay to use them to kill demons and hunt ghosts. The dark-skinned boy took out a few small scrolls from his sleeves, and with a sudden trembling, he spread out 4 small hanging statues. Stop in the air. With Kingna's hand, he really frightened the ghosts who had already turned on their weapons. The sword-carrying boy squatted in the grass and rubbed his chin. This little girl who goes by the pseudonym Qingyi was really a chi trainer, but it was only a situation as if he had deliberately delayed the breakthrough. It's not hard to guess there is no suitable way to practice ghost Taoism in that town with a lot of yin and ghosts. A chi trainer, a big living person, open a house casually and absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It is difficult to peel off the cocoon. Get rid of those ferocious and turbid chi. The foundation is unstable, and it is easy to be flooded by the tide in several places of life chi. Just when he saw the 4 portraits, he was a little dumbfounded. There is that sect of the gods, Qizhen Qi Tianjun, an old Taoist immortal, who used to be a celestial master from one continent in the past. There are also 2 portraits of Yuan and Chao painted door gods that once covered the door at the foot of Izhou Mountain. To say that these 3 were used by the green mud to frighten demons, ghosts, and ward off evil spirits. Although it was useless, it was reasonable. Just the last portrait, a young man in a green shirt and a sword. Qin Pingon was speechless for a while and rubbed his brows. I saw the 4 hanging statues surrounding the young man, slowly rotating with a certain appearance and a bit of fairy style. And the passing ghost was full of vigilance at first, and was really afraid of encountering a monk on the mountain, and then saw the shaky swarthy youth and began to laugh and laugh. Knight. If these few hanging statues really work, wouldn't it be possible to carry the hanging statues of the 3 sect patriarchs with you? After just a moment, the leading ghost felt like it was struck by lightning, shook his head and was about to kneel as soon as his knees became weak, and he randomly chopped a few knives and he waved his knife and ran, and all of a sudden he disappeared. The figure disappeared, and the rest of the minions saw that the opportunity was not good, and instantly dispersed as birds and beasts. Qingyi sat on the ground slumped and hurriedly put the 4 small scrolls into his sleeves. I was laughed at by Sister Zhou and Uncle Lu before, never thought it would really work. Qing and I turned his head to look at the with the sword on his back and was walking towards him slowly, patted the weeds on his head and the dirt on his body as he walked, nodded and said, I never thought you were still a chi practitioner. Only 1 foot has stepped on the mountain, which is gratifying. From now on we will meet each other as Daoist friends. Qingyi, good name and Dao name. I know a Dao name that is only 1 character away from yours, and the realm is quite high. In fact, Qin Pingon also thought it was funny. Just because the hanging statue was only a few steps away from him, the real person and the righteous master, there was a line of traction invisibly. Qing and I gritted his teeth and said, How do you say, are you going back to the town? Qin Pingon smiled and said, listen to your sister Zhou, stay away from right and wrong. I just tried to test your courage. The dark boy silently followed the unreliable guy. Even if Sister Zhou was wrong, he would never be able to walk out of the Hehuan Mountains alive by himself. Along the way, almost every 7 or 80 miles, there is a dojo where big monsters are evil or ghosts, which is extremely dangerous. At the end of last winter, Sister Zhou escorted herself to the border of Hehuan Mountain once while taking advantage of the heavy snow. As a result, Sister Zhou was keenly aware of a hidden aura, but could not determine the location of the other party, so they had to go back the same way. There's no way. Sister Zhou and the others are in the Hehuan Mountains and they have made too many enemies. In fact, they don't care if they leave Hehuan Mountain. Instead, they like to accompany Sister Zhou and the others, but Sister Zhou always says that she has a good life and should travel far away. In the distance, a man in armor stretched out his hand to touch the stubble. What kind of expert is this? She was also helpless. Maybe it's because I'm not good at counting hexagrams, but this is the end of the matter, so be a dead horse and a living horse doctor. The man nodded. There's nothing we can do, we can only leave it to fate. This girl looks like a lucky girl and I think she will be able to get out of this place alive. Now it was Zhou Qiu's turn to be surprised. Do you really feel relieved to hand her over to this person? He nodded. Just take a gamble. As far as your gambling luck is concerned, don't you always lose money? Because the gambling table keeps losing, I believe there will always be a win outside the gambling table. By the way, Lu Biaochang, why did those ghosts retreat by themselves? Did you take action? The man shook his head. Strange thing. I thought it was your trick. Don't keep up with the distance? There will be a difference. Besides, I believe in the results of your hexagram. The two juveniles, who met by chance, did not speak to each other, and walked one after the other for about half an hour. A young Daoist priest wearing a lotus crown squatted by a river to wash his face. With a large pile of clothes under his arm, he hurriedly threw it on the ground, stood up and trotted towards the boy with the sword. Qin Pingon stopped and frowned. Lu Qin sighed and shook his head. Obviously, the existence that Headmaster Lu is looking for is not the juvenile, who goes by the pseudonym Qingni. Since that existence is in Aquarius, then a young hidden official Ma Kushuan who has returned to his hometown, or Gukin, may encounter it. Moreover, their possibilities are much greater than that of ordinary Qi practitioners. As long as it is deeply entangled with the wild world and the demon clan, the more likely it is. So this is the reason why Lu Qin took the initiative to find Qin Pingon. But this is only a possibility. Heaven is impermanent and things are unpredictable. Qin Pingon didn't explain anything to Qingyi either and asked, the gust of wind that splashed Mofeng earlier, was it your fault? Lu Qin said aggrieved. How is it possible? That's it. Qin Pingon reminded. Lu Qin, you will look for it next time. Remember not to meet me next time. There are only 3 things. First, there is the scattered flower beach in the Jade Mountain, and the Pomo Peak in the boundary of the Hehuan Mountains, as well as this place. Lu Qin began to change the subject and said with a smile, when someone evaluates your calligraphy, you can judge your calligraphy by printing. You lose in lack of talent and you win in hard work. Qin Pingon nodded and said, it's a very objective evaluation. Lu Qin turned his head to look at the dark girl. The girl smiled and said, good fortune, I can make Pin Dao and Qin Shanju protect the Dao for you together. The girl was in a very bad mood at the moment. She almost blurted out, what kind of onion are you, but she held back after thinking about it. Qin Pingon asked in his heart, which senior on the mountain is that in the Qingming world? Lu Qin sold out, an expert with high realm, high temperament and high vision. Qin Pingon glanced at the girl's satchel, which contained the waist badge of the Doli Scout Jingqi. The reason why I became a heroic spirit here, but I still lingered. Why didn't I go home and avoid the kiln smoke? It must be because of my obsession, and there are only 2 words, kill the demon. Lu Qin wrapped his arms around his sleeves and said slowly, Pin Dao guessed the real reason. The girl Zhou said there was something unspeakable, so it must have been a little twisted. Qin Pingon said, Master Lu, please send Qingni away from the Hehuan Mountains. I will go back to the small town and settle her in the Xianxia Inn in the capital of Qingxing Kingdom. Lu Qin smiled and said, why is it so troublesome? Let's go back to the town together for the 3 of us. Qin Pingon was silent and Lu Qin smiled and said, you might as well listen to the poor Daoist. For fortune-telling, I think Miss Zhou is not as proficient as the poor Daoist. Qin Pingon hesitated for a while but nodded. Lu Qin and the dark girl grinned and said, "Fellow Daoist Qingyi, you can kill the 14 realms by joining forces with the two of us." Qingyi asked curiously, "This Taoist priest, what are the 14 realms?" According to Sister Zhou, the world outside is full of wonders, but isn't the realm of martial arts not the highest talent on the mountain, and the qi practitioners on the mountain are superb? Lu Qin said solemnly, "Don't understand the 14th realm? It's just 14 one-level qi practitioners." The girl looked at the young Taoist who was hanging around, and then at the boy with the sword who ran away when he was in trouble, and felt that it was not without reason that they could become friends. Lu Qin smiled and said, "A gust of wind on the top of the mountain pulled out so many red lines of cause and effect outside the mountain." The implication, of course, is that Qin Pingon agreed to participate in the King Xingguo viewing ceremony. At Nujiadayu, Qin Pingon just nodded with nothing to do with good or evil. Thousands of miles away, the entire Hehuan Mountains have their own joys and sorrows. Perhaps it is self-inflicted, it may be self-made, or it may be fate. Qin Pingon took out the vermilion wine gourd and just drank it. Lu Qin turned his head and asked, "Young Daoist Qingyi, who do you think is the youngest and most handsome of the gods in the previous 4 portraits?" Before Qingyi could answer this idiot's question, he saw that the sword-carrying boy raised his hand and punched, and the young Taoist flew out on the spot. Qing and I, who was startled, said in a trembling voice, "Did you hit that long temple with your punch? Is he really okay?" The sword-backed boy said angrily, "I saw it wrong, it's Tianling Gai, and the Taoist priest has directly proclaimed the Daoan sword." Qingyi was worried about whether the person was injured. She turned her head to look again, only to hear the young Daoist snort softly and a carp kicked up, but he failed to get up and fell to the ground again. The Daoist had to stretch out his hands to support the ground. "Get up, shake your shoulders vigorously and scatter all over the dust." The Taoist priest seemed to be fine, and he didn't care about the punch with the sword-carrying youth at all, and asked, "Young fellow Taoist Qingyi, are you very familiar with Qi Tianjun of the Divine Gathering sect? It's such a coincidence that Pin Dao also has some connections with him." The girl was a little relieved and said with a stern face, "I am very familiar with Qi Tianjun, but Qi Tianjun is not familiar with me." The Taoist priest wearing the lotus crown slapped his fist. "It's a coincidence, isn't it? Qi Tianjun is very familiar with Pin Dao, and Pin Dao is not familiar with Qi Tianjun." The girl frowned and said, "Daoist said the opposite?" Lu Qin rubbed his chin, pretending to be contemplative. "Young Daoist Qingyi, what do you think of my brother Chen's character and appearance? Is it worthy of the term young in 10,000 pockets?" "Ah." Lu Qin wrapped his hands around his neck and stretched his waist. "If anyone knows that spring will come and go unless you ask for a bird outside the cage." Sort of Coming Chapter 10:16. The journey was safe and sound. Qingyi took the 2 strange people who seemed to be picked up from the inside and returned to the town smoothly. Maybe the sneaky and dirty place in the eyes of outsiders is lovable in the eyes of the girl. When she returned to the town, the thin girl obviously she relaxed a lot and her footsteps were a little light. Previously she followed the sword-backed boy in the wilderness. King's body was obviously a little stiff, and her heartstrings were tense all the time. Maybe she was born and raised here. In other words, there is a day and night difference between a familiar town and an unfamiliar world outside. The young Taoist asked, "Young Taoist Qingyi, does the town have a name?" Feng Lu. In the past soldiers fought for war, but now the 4 seasons are all lovely. This Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown is wearing a heavy cotton robe, which is only knee-length, and a cloth strip is tied to the calf. It is probably due to the lack of official roads in the Hehuan Mountains, and there are some thorns on the leggings. Barb. The girl is more worried at the moment, or she is afraid that when she returns to her residence later, Sister Zhou will be angry. Don't look at Sister Zhou's gentleness and kindness. She usually speaks in a soft voice, but after spending time with each other year after year, the girl has long discovered that in fact Uncle Lu and the others are all in awe of Sister Zhou. After 7 turns and 8 turns, Qingyi led the young Taoist priest and the sword-backed boy into a dark alley. On the way she occasionally turned her head to look back and saw that Taoist priest was a thief. Was he stepping on the spot? Zhou Qiu, who was holding an umbrella and embroidered shoes, appeared at the corner of the 2 alleys, frowning slightly. "Why are you back?" The thin and dark girl twisted the corners of her clothes and pursed her lips. She thought of some lame excuses along the way. When she saw Sister Zhou, the girl would not want to lie. Fortunately, the sword-carrying youth helped open the siege and explained, I was under the tree before and from the moment I accepted the money this trip was accepted, but I didn't say when I would set off for the journey, Miss Zhou. I promised to take the green mud. Just bring out the Hehuan Mountains with all the beards and tails and jumping around. If Miss Zhou doesn't believe me, I can swear here if Qingmi loses a single hair in the town tonight, I will be by my side. This Daoist Lu, who claims to be my close friend and relative, cut off his dog's head, apologized to Miss Zhou and apologized. Daoist Lu looked dazed. Huh? Zhou Qiu suppressed his anger and asked, who is this? The young Taoist hurriedly turned his head, coughed a few times, moistened his throat, made a bow and said loudly, Xiao Dao is Lu. He is proficient in measuring characters and drawing lots, especially good at reading palmistry. The price is fair and the old man has nothing to do with it. Bully, don't accept the money. A man in armor walked out from behind Zhou Qiu, his palm resting on the hilt of the waist knife. When he saw this scene, he was reluctant to scold the silly girl and he couldn't say anything in person, so he could only complain in his heart. Zhou Qiu, talk about it yourself. Look, what kind of business is this? Zhou Qiu also had two big heads and said in his heart, blame me, I found the wrong person. The man asked, it really doesn't work, so I'll go to old man Qi for help? Zhou Qiu said, let's talk about it when I talk to them. The man reminded, don't delay for too long. Zhou Qi touched the girl's head, I'm usually so obedient, how come it's a critical moment and am making a fool of myself instead? Qingyi whispered, home is here, Sister Zhou, Uncle Lu, you are all here and you are reluctant to leave. Zhou Qiu smiled bitterly and said nothing and led them to a simple but clean house. The girl put down the messenger bag and knew the way. She went to the kitchen to take out the white bowl, took the gourd and spooned out the glutinous rice wine from the wine jar. The four of them sat around a small table in the courtyard. After Qingyi brought the wine bowl to the table, she did not serve the table. She poured herself a bowl of glutinous rice wine and sat on the threshold of the kitchen door. The man with a sword smiled and said, my name is Lu Tai. I believe that young Master Qin and Daoist Lu have seen it. They are no longer from the world. The two of them don't care about this and they are willing to drink at the same table. Respect the two of them first. Both the sword-backed boy and the young Taoist priest held up their wine bowls and Lu Tai drank it all. Zhou Qiu didn't drink, so he pushed his wine bowl to the man in armor. Qin Pingon asked, where is brother Lu from? Listening to the accent, it doesn't look like someone from Qingxing country. Lu Tai said, it's from the north. Lu Qin smiled and asked, which is north of Dadu? Lu Tai shook his head and said, Master Lu is joking. To the north of that Dadu is the Dali dynasty. Lu Qin praised, the realm of Xiaodao may not be high but his eyes are very accurate. At first glance, brother Lu is a strong general on the battlefield. Lu Tai was stunned for a while, but Zhou Qiu's face was as usual. The girl over there at the door wondered, isn't it arrogant? Is this condescending Taoist priest an ignorant and incompetent scholar? The sword-backed boy smiled and said, is it possible that you read a fake character? Lu Qin didn't feel embarrassed at all and wiped the corner of his mouth with his thumb. Which mountain is brother Lu currently living in? Xiaodao heard that the two mountains Zuiyuan and Wuting each have military camps and they are both strong and strong. If you don't have the ability to get a school captain, the eyes of the stewards of the two governments will grow on their buttocks. Lu Tai smiled, I can't climb high. I don't talk about these unpleasant things, I still have something to do, so I will stay soon. After drinking 2 bowls of wine, Lu Tai said goodbye and left. Zhou Qi got up to see them off, went out to the alley and smiled bitterly. There is a cave mansion cultivation base. A Qi trainer cooperates with a pure martial artist, and the confidence to Qingyi to leave this place is even greater. Unexpectedly, this Taoist priest has a stagnant breathing in the town, and the breath is quite turbid. Obviously he can't adapt to the small town for a while. The evil aura on the side is definitely not a cultivator of the middle 5 realm. Zhou Qiu was both a spy and a military cultivator during his lifetime. Therefore Lu Tai's dozen or so cavalry, whether during his lifetime or after his death, were very convinced of Zhou Qiu. Qin Pingon asked, what's the little girl's real name? The dark girl sitting over the threshold was speechless. How did she find out her gender? Zhou Qiu said with a smile, and I Qing, turn around and take the homonym. The young Taoist asked, what's your surname? Zhou Qiu said with a smile, Master Lu is of Taoism. Haven't you read the great master and Qiushui of that Taoist master? And I, who knows no clues, knows right and wrong and cannot be divided into small ones. Not to mention a Haigong master like Lu Daochong, it seems that even a cultivator outside of Taoism, or even an ordinary master of a scholarly family, should know these two sentences, right? Lu Daochong was anxious. Xiao Dao just hasn't read any of the chapters, so why is she a fake Taoist? Did Miss Zhou bully Xiao Dao from a poor family and didn't read much? Qin Pingon twitched the corners of his mouth and took a sip of the glutinous rice wine, which was not as good as Dong Shijing's wine. Zhou Qiu smiled and said, "The level of the Dao is not about the endorsement." Chief Lu Dao, the Taoist, sighed and said, "What kind of person is this person? How can he make Miss Zhou so familiar?" Qin Pingon said, "It's almost there." Lu Qin had to stop the bragging that he had already written, changed the subject, looked at the thin and dark girl, smiled and said, "An I Ching, good name. The sun rises in Etian and I. The autumn air is strong and chilling. The fresh air is great and the vegetation is withered. In fact, Qingyi is also a good name. Qingyi Ziojiangwen, wind and snow, thousands of mountains. The real name is An I Ching and the Taoist name is Qingyi." Zhou Qiu had doubts in his heart, because just based on the sentence, sunrise and Etian and I, this Taoist priest surnamed Lu must have read the Great Master and Autumn Water. She glanced at the sword-backed boy who sat down to drink and kept his mouth shut, and then at the young Taoist priest who drank 7 or 8 sips without drinking a drink or two. One of them was not astonishing, and he was so eloquent. Hippie smiley, so curious. No wonder the two friends can get together. Zhou Qiu said, "Master Lu. It really couldn't be delayed any longer." The rainbow light and the sword light that lit up over the Momo Peak were just greeting her. The young Taoist hurriedly said, "Just call Brother Lu." Zhou Qi turned a deaf ear and said, "What kind of place is Fengla Town? I think you two have a lot, especially tonight is the day of the wedding banquet in Hehuan Mountain. The fish and dragons are mixed and the level of danger is far greater than usual. Lu Tai and I have a personal grudge. The solution, but the odds of winning are not high. I know it is impossible to do it. Naturally, there are reasons for it. There is no need for the two of you to ask. It is only because I am destined to take care of An Qing, so I will find Qin Gongzi earlier. An Qing took him out of the Hehuan Mountains, away from this place of right and wrong. After I became a ghost, I lived in An Qing's ancestral house. Later, Lu Tai and the others also settled in this alley. Over the years, some ghosts have the things that shouldn't be done are actually An Qing's help. Repaying kindness and revenge is the right thing to do, so I urge the two of you to take An Qing out of Fengla Town quickly. Bet Dart, I can give you an extra amount of fairy money." Qin Pingon pointed to Lu Qin. "I had planned to go to the capital of Qingxing Kingdom. He wanted to go back. I swore that when An Qing returned to the town, there would be an opportunity waiting for her." Zhou Qiu looked at the Taoist priest. Unexpectedly, the Taoist priest had already turned to his side, facing the gate of the courtyard, not looking at Miss Zhou. Zhou Qi was helpless, so he had to wait for news from Lu Tai and ask the old man surnamed Qi to help him, and let the master of the golden body and realm find someone to send An Qing out of the town. There are a few in the hospital, and the next step is to drink and not speak. Lu Tai soon brought an old man and a woman here. Zhou Qi stood up and cupped his hands. "Senior Qi, Miss Lu." The old man's surname is Qi Mingsong. He is the chief guest secretary of the Zhang clan in Tianchao County, and a warrior with a golden body. The last time the cultivator Zhang encountered a wall here, it was Qi Song who was in charge of the rear of the palace, and the greater damage was avoided. The two sides shouted drums to withdraw their troops. Only Qi Song walked to the town at the foot of the mountain alone. Fu Yang and Yu Chunji also didn't want to fight to the end with an old man who was in martial arts, so they let the other party live at the foot of the mountain. In the spring of this year, another direct disciple of Qi Song came. Although she was a woman, she was the extremely ruthless martial artist has made many shots in Fengla Town. This girl named Lu Mo, in her 30s, is already at the peak of the 5 realms of martial arts. It is said that the Qingxing Kingdom wants to recruit her to serve Forbidden Army instructor. Qi Song was a chubby old man with a halberd beard and a frog belly. He was smiling. He saw the cotton-robed Taoist priest and the straw-shoe boy. The young Taoist waved his hand vigorously and said with a smile, "The visitor is a guest, so what are you doing? There is no shortage of wine at home." That Lu Mo is not as slender and plump as Miss Zhou. At first glance he really doesn't look like a trainer, but more like a pampered lady from a wealthy family. The Taoist priest Fong Kai was staring at the door of the hospital, and the first person who came into view was not the woman's profile. The Taoist winked at Lu Tai. Hey, it turns out that brother Lu likes to eat pork belly that is both fat and thin. Lu Tai was like a cloud and he just pretended he didn't see the strange face of Daoist Lu. And I Ching moved 2 benches from the main house, and Sister Zhou and Uncle Lu, the master and the apprentice, sat on one each. Zhou Qi said bravely, "Young Master Chen, Daoist Lu, I won't go around in circles with you. Lu Tai has already negotiated with Senior Qi and Miss Lu, and Miss Lu will personally go out and I Ching all the way out of the town." Qin Pingon nodded, only saying a good word, and then there was no movement. Lu Chen felt that he was thin-skinned, so he could only remind in a low voice, "Brother Chen, I don't have any eyesight. Miss Zhou is implying that you take out 2 bags of immortal money." Qin Pingon squinted. "It's none of your business." Lu Chen was so anxious that he almost pinched his feet. "Don't be stunned, a bag of snow will pay for Master Qi and Sister Lu as darts, and a bag of xiaoshu will be returned to Miss Zhou." Qi Song laughed, reaching out and gently stroking her bulging belly. Lu Mo frowned slightly. Where did these 2 swindlers appear? The young man surnamed Chen really has the 4 realms of martial arts? Zhou Qi smiled and said, "Perhaps Lu Daochang has misremembered. That bag of xiaoshu money is the fee for escorting darts that I agreed with young Master Chen." "My brother, this is all a lie. Didn't you say you only earn a bag of snow money earlier?" The young Taoist opened his eyes wide, then his face was full of eagerness to try, his eyes were hot and he rubbed his hands and said, "People are fortune and birds are killed for food. Usually their heads are tied to the belt of trousers. A bag of xiaoshu money. This dart Pindao took it. Not Lao's Sister Lu is driving." Lu Mo's face was expressionless. He picked up the wine bowl but turned the toe of his shoe gently. Suddenly the young Taoist flew out with a bench. He was a little surprised. The Taoist was so weak. She had to turn her wrist. A gust of wind cleverly passed between the Taoist priest and the wall. The young Taoist fell to the ground, got up, put his hands on his hips, raised the other hand and said in a trembling voice, "It's okay. It's just a small thing, it's a small thing, it's a small thing." The sword-carrying boy was indifferent to this, just raised his head and said, "Miss Lu is so rash and tempted, isn't she afraid of hitting hard nails? Or is it that the guest King Wafu of the Zhang family in Tianchao County has such a fierce temper?" Qi Song nodded and smiled and said, "Harmony makes money and harmony makes money." Lu Mo quickly apologized to Daoist Lu. "Xiaoyuchen is right, be kind to others when you go out. Don't always think that the whole world is a ghost with ill-conceived minds." Lu Mo got up and clasped his fists and said, "What a sin." The young Taoist priest carried the small bench, staggered back to his original position and said with a grin, "The family doesn't speak 2 languages and the beating is kissing and scolding, it is love, Sister Lu." The young Taoist's expression suddenly changed as he spoke indecent words. The little girl dared to be so presumptuous with the Taoist watching the dart. With a stride, smashing the bench as a hidden weapon at Lu Mo. As a result, the ghostly figure walked around the table in a few steps, grabbed the bench with one hand, threw it on the ground, and then came to the Taoist priest. An elbow hit him on the chest, and the Taoist priest lifted his feet off the ground. He fell into the main house of the house on the side of the air, slammed his back against the edge of the 8 Immortals table, squeaked, fell a dog and ate shit and lay on the mud floor in the house. "Brother Chen, save me." The sword-carrying boy took out 2 bags of fairy money and threw them on the table. "If you like to take care of things, take them." Zhou Qi glanced at the 2 bags of money on the table, her eyebrows stood upright, took a deep breath and finally managed to hold back without opening her mouth to explain the mystery. Ren escorted I Ching back to the town toll. Lu Mo put the bag of xiaoshu money into his sleeve, then threw another bag of fairy money to I Ching and said with a smile, "Little girl, we can go on our way." Zhou Qiu said, "Lu Tai him for a ride." The man in armor put down the wine bowl. I Ching hesitated. Seeing that Sister Zhou showed signs of anger, he had to pick up the oil paper umbrella and the package again, and left the house with the woman. Looking back, Sister Zhou nodded at her, and the young man with the sword was drinking with a straight face. The Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown, lying on the threshold of the main house, waved at her and even laughed. Walking in the alley, the girl remembered something and reluctantly used her inner voice, saying, "Uncle Lu, that Daoist Lu has a very strange crown on his head. I have never seen it in the town. I heard Sister Zhou say that a serious Taoist priest with a severance order must be well dressed and must not be arrogant. The crown is in the shape of a fishtail crown. It is a line of inheritance, but the young Taoist priest surnamed Lu is a lotus Taoist crown. Here in the town there are also some Qi trainers who came from eccentricities, who like to dress up as Dao masters, but they don't have this kind of Dao crown. Lu Tai's expression changed slightly and he asked with a smile, "How do you say it?" And I Ching said, "The crown of Tao is like a lotus flower." Lu Tai stopped, looking complicated, hesitating for a while. If he remembers correctly, in this Aquarius island, the only Taoist priests who are qualified to wear the lotus crown, except for a few unknown Taoist temples on Shengdazong Mountain whose incense is withered, there is only the Ling Fei from the old Daoist dynasty. Look, the previous Guanzhou Xianjun Chao Rong, only because he is the disciple of Baiyujing Lu Zhangjiao, is wearing a lotus crown and both are honored. This is still the secret story on the mountain that Lu Tai heard from Zhou Xian. The most mysterious thing is that the young Taoist priest in Lu Tai's eyes is not wearing a Taoist crown at all. If it is said that he can't see through the blindfold, that's all. Zhou Qi is a Longmen monk with a strong family background. How can she see through? The surnamed Lu was either a bold and ignorant Shan Zhe Yeshio, or a genealogical Taoist priest from Lingfei Temple. Lu Tai was thoughtful and continued to move forward, seemingly casually asking, "Miss Lu, can you see the Taoist priest's lineage and roots on the mountain?" Lu Mo smiled and said, "It's just a poor and sour liar, but he's really a Qi practitioner and he knows some breathing techniques to strengthen the body. I used skillful strength in the 2 strokes in front of me in the courtyard. As for being so embarrassed, I have to pretend that I don't want to. With my master's eyesight, except for the earth immortal, I can't deceive the old man. If it is really a land immortal who travels all over the world, his words and deeds will not drop in price like this." Lu Tai asked again with a heartfelt voice. "It is rumored that the Jinkei faction of Old Master Qing has the lineage of the Qingjing Peak Jingxian Temple. It has a prosperous incense and has always been as good as the Qingqing Peak. Moreover, it has some origins with the southernmost Lingfei Temple." Lu Mo was greatly amazed, and he used the martial artist's method of concentrating his voice and said with a smile, "Is Lu Biaochang so well informed that he even knows this kind of mountain insider? The ancestor of the Jinkei school, the true Taoist lineage of the founder of the mountain, is indeed from the Lingfei Temple, but for some unknown reason Jingxian and has been reluctant to talk about this matter to the outside world for hundreds of years. Flying to the palace, climbing up the relationship, not to mention publicizing it to the outside world, it is not right to hide and hide. Master guessed that the founder of Jingxian Temple was probably an abandoned disciple who was driven down the mountain by Chao Rongtian, so I don't dare to mention this at all. Master knows this because he has a good relationship with the ancestor of Zhang's family in Tianchao County, and he has nothing to say." Lu Tai clenched the handle of the knife tightly and asked the girl beside him in his heart, "And I Ching, does the Taoist priest have words to reveal his identity? Think about it carefully and don't let any clues go away." And I Ching said, "It's all unreliable and strange words such as what Qi Tianjun of Shengao sect is familiar with him. He is not familiar with Qi Tianjun, and said that if I join forces with them I can kill any 14 realms. According to Taoist priests, there are 14 one-level Qi practitioners." Lu Tai was speechless, spit and scolded the liar of the dog days and then said solemnly, "Go, let's leave the town quickly." Then he hurried back and reminded Zhou Qi that he must stay away from the Taoist priest who ate the bear's heart and the leopard's gall, as well as the boy who carried the sword. For some reason the girl felt empty in her heart. Those 2 weirdos who had not met for a long time, although neither of them were righteous, their words were interesting. For example, when he was resting by a river in the middle, the young man with the sword brushed off the soil, chewed the grass roots and stared at the river in a daze. Seeing that no one was there, the Taoist priest turned his head and took the initiative to talk to her, asking her if she knew why a person's left ear could hear better than his right ear, and what meant facing the lusts and his back to the sky. She ignored it, and the Taoist priest took care of himself. It is explained that there are yin and yang qi between heaven and earth. The sky is clear and the earth is turbid, the earth is dirty, and there are many living things, and the left ear belongs to yang, so the heaven hears sharply, the right ear belongs to yin, and the earth hears better. In addition, there are differences between men and women. Here the young Taoist pointed to the river with a smile, and said something that made Anai Qing, who was never afraid of ghosts, feel horrified. He said that if there were floating drowned corpses in Hanoi, even if they were soaked in water beyond recognition, the people on the bank would still look at them. Men and women can be identified. Men regard their faces as yin and their backs as yang. Therefore, when a corpse floats in water, It must be facing the bottom of the water and turning its back to the sky. This is also a clue that we humans are in the dark signs. After all, the head of all spirits is not a call for nothing. On the other side of the courtyard, Zhou Qi sent Qi Song to the corner of the alley. The old man patted his abdomen lightly and said with a smile, "Since the purpose is the same, why not join hands with us?" Zhou Qi shook his head and said, "Two things." The old man sighed. Even for personal revenge, as long as Miss Zhou is willing to reveal her identity with the Lu clan of Qingxing Kingdom, why wouldn't Hahuan Mountain refuse to hand over the monster that was tipping the bill for the wilderness? Zhou Qi said indifferently, "There is no evidence." Qi Song hinted, "Evidence? As long as the monster falls in Miss Zhou's hands, won't it be there?" Zhou Qiu smiled. According to the military rules of the border, for the sake of selfishness, the abuse of public weapons should be executed according to the law. Seeing that she had made up her mind, Qi Song had to give up, hesitated for a moment and said, "The two people in the courtyard whose origins are unknown, you should be careful." Back in the small courtyard, Zhou Qiu looked at the young Taoist priest who sat back in place and rubbed his waist, still stubborn. "Miss Zhou, don't look at your brother Lu who looks weak and your skeleton is not strong enough. I'm sick and alive. This is the great benefit of the God's presence where the Taoist heart is tough and the soul is fixed. As long as Miss Zhou does not dislike it, Pindao will immediately teach Miss Zhou a Daoing technique. Not to mention thunder at night, you will feel palpitations. Even if you walk in the sun during the day, it's okay. Come, Rome. Pindao first show Miss Zhou a palmistry. What Pindao has learned is complicated. You need to prescribe the right medicine to get twice the result with half the effort." Zhou Qi waved his hand. "Master Lu has kindly accepted it. Young Master Qin, don't blame me for the expulsion order." Qin Pingon said, "Take people's money to help people eliminate disasters. Those little summer money should be regarded as the reward for Daoist Lu to solve problems for Zhou girl." Lu Qin stopped rubbing his waist. "What?" Qin Pingon said, "Zhao Fuyang and Yu Chuanji from the Hahuan Mountains, have they ever colluded with the savage demon clan? And did the Lu clan of Qingxing Kingdom know anything about concealing the report? Don't tell me that there is no evidence. You and Lu Biaolong just have a guess in your mind." Zhou Qiu was shocked, narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "Who are you?" The conversation she had just had with Qi Song was quite far away from the house, not to mention a Qi practitioner at the Dragon Gate realm and a martial artist at the Golden Body realm. How could the two people in the courtyard be able to hear it casually? The young Taoist chief said aggrieved, "You Miss Zhou, you are missing a word. The poor Taoist is also a strong hero, the most unaccustomed to injustice in life." Qin Pingon glanced at Lu Qin, seeing money to do things. Lu Qin put down the wine bowl and burped, first muttering as if whispering to others, and then the Taoist priest shook his sleeves. Helpless is also helpless, just seeing money to do things, not taking money to do things. Who made Pindao and Qin Shanju be close friends and relatives who could drink as soon as they met? Zhou Qiu put his hands on his sleeves, wondering, is this poor and sour Taoist pretending to be a ghost? Just what's the point? After a while, a young woman with a bun appeared out of thin air on the other side of the alley. She was slender and showed a high forehead. She looked at the sword-carrying boy in the courtyard and said with a smile, "Master." End of this chapter.